All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Cool Beans Hot Stuff and another episode of Newsweek Wednesdays. And I gotta be honest, I am dragging ass today, you guys. Uh, got home late from work, had a leg day in the gym today, and I'm on like the last 2 weeks of a really gnarly bulk. So I'm like, I'm dragging ass. I'm tired. But I still made it here half an hour late, but I'm still here for all five of you faithful, loyal viewers. So thank you for being here. Today, we are going to look at some news like we do every Wednesday. Hey, Razor, what's going on? Yes, we will be talking about some Trump stuff today. Absolutely. Well, actually, everything we're talking about today is going to be some Trump stuff. The first topic that we're going to cover is going to be an executive order that Trump just signed regarding fair banking practices. Okay, so we're going to look into that one. For anybody who didn't catch last week's episode of Newsweek Wednesdays, we spent a couple hours talking about payment, excuse me, that was a burp. Payment processors, Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal, deciding on behalf of video gamers all around the world what video games could be offered on online video game stores. If certain video games were being offered in the stores, payment processors were refusing to allow those stores to use their payment processors. And of course, these are the three biggest payment processors in the world. So pretty much destroys your business, right? So they're kind of strong arming smaller businesses into carrying the kind of games that they wanted people to carry. So we might have an executive order that changes that. Maybe. We're going to see. We're going to hear a couple people's opinions on it. We're going to read the actual executive order so we know what's in it, and then get some people's opinions on whether or not this is actually going to have any effect on what we talked about last week. And then we're going to hop over to the deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. So that just happened a day ago, 2 days ago, somewhere in thereabouts. Trump just deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C. to help with the crime that's going on down there. Okay, so we're going to look into that. We're going to read the White House's statement on that. And then we're going to look into some crime stats because there's a lot of people. Obviously, we're in the realm of politics, so everybody's got an opinion. And there's a lot of people who are of the opinion that this was unnecessary. So we're going to look into some crime stats, and then we're going to hear a couple other people's opinions and maybe form our own about it. Because I don't actually know that much about it. All I actually heard about DC, I mean, I heard that this happened, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing a fucking stream about it. But all that I heard was that Big Balls from Doge got his butt kicked, got his hiney kicked in down there in Washington, D.C. I think his girlfriend was getting carjacked or something, and he stepped up like a broski, but he got his butt kicked. And so I think that was like the beginning of that snowball. Eventually, I guess, I don't think it was that reason specifically, but that reason seems to be what's the word that I'm looking for? The event that started this whole thing. Okay, I can't think of the exact word. There's a word for it, and it would make me sound smart if I could remember it, but I can't. So, anyways, let's go ahead and hop over, y'all, and start reading some shit. How are you doing tonight, by the way, Razor? Hopefully you're doing good. Hope the job's doing good. And starting the new business is going too good, my man. Hope that's all going awesome for you. Okay, and I hope you're excited to talk about some Trump stuff, too. Trump is the content president. We get all kinds of juicy shit out of Trump. He's doing things every week, and a lot of it is very controversial stuff. So you can expect my Newsweek Wednesdays for the foreseeable future to be based on a lot of stuff that Trump is doing, right? So let's see. Razor. Trump has become unbearably narcissistic. Well, anyone can burn an American flag in America, but you can't burn an Israeli flag over or violate Israel in America. Yeah, so As far as like the Israel stuff goes, I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that. I know that he came out and said some things about boycotting Israel. I think we kind of talked about this on the last stream. He wanted to boycott, or if any state boycotts Israel, then he was discussing, excuse me, withholding emergency funds. Okay, that's not the disaster relief funds. That's the word. Poof, finally remembered something. Disaster relief funds. And that is fucked up. That's fucking crazy. That's wild as shit. Yeah. I'm all for, like, I don't appreciate it when people burn the American flag, but it is freedom of speech. And absolutely, like, people should be allowed to burn the American flag because it is freedom of speech. But yeah, if somebody a president especially has a problem with somebody like burning an Israeli flag, for example, I think is the example you gave, Razor. That's fucking crazy. That's wild as shit. Like, no way. Now, so we aren't going to be talking a lot about that, but we are going to be talking about some other stuff Trump is doing, and we'll see if his, I suppose, penchant for narcissism that you brought up, if it sticks. So I will be honest, this first thing I do like. I don't know much about the National Guard thing. Okay. We're going to get into it so I can actually formulate an opinion on it. That's why I decided to do the stream on that, because I don't have an opinion of that as of right now, because I just don't know anything about it. But the banking thing, I'm pretty stoked about this. I think this is a good thing. So here is the executive order guaranteeing fair banking for all of Americans. So let's go ahead and dive into it. What it says: by the authority vested in me as president and yada, 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 I hereby order Section 1, purpose: financial institutions have engaged in unacceptable practices to restrict law-abiding individuals and businesses access to financial services on the basis of political or religious beliefs or lawful business activities. Another burp. Some financial institutions participated in government-directed surveillance programs targeting persons participating in activities and causes commonly associated with conservatism and the political right following the events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6th. Yeah, it is important to note that this executive order doesn't have anything to do as far as like addressing PayPal and MasterCard and the thing we were talking about last week, right? The thing that I'm interested in, right? I still don't think it's okay for people to be debanked over their political opinions. No way, no how. I don't care what political opinion that is. Okay, I heavily disagree with a lot of opinions on the far right, and I heavily disagree with a lot of opinions on the far left. I am in no way, shape, or form communist, socialist, woke, or anything like that. Okay, so I disagree with both sections of those people. Those people should still absolutely be allowed to say whatever they want to say without getting their banking taken away. 100%. This is more centered on the political aspect. That's his purpose. As we're reading here, that's the express purpose of this executive order. So the federal government suggested that such institutions flag individuals who made transactions related to companies like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop, or who made peer-to-peer payments that involved terms like Trump or MAGA, even though there was no specific evidence tying those individuals to criminal conduct. Okay, well now, I don't know how true any of that is, but if that's the case, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. Bullshit. Absolutely should not happen, right? Bank regulators have used supervisory scrutiny and other influence over regulated banks to direct or otherwise encourage politicized or unlawful debanking activities. Operation Choke Point, for example, was a well-documented and systemic means by which federal regulators pushed banks to minimize their involvement with individuals and companies engaged in lawful activities and industries disfavored by regulators based on factors other than individualized, objective, risk-based standards. Okay, I don't know about Operation Choke Point. I have no idea what that is. If we have some time in the stream, we'll go over that, but I got a lot of stuff for us to cover, so we might not get to that. That might be something we leave for next Wednesday. Okay, there was an American citizen who went to Israel during the colonization of Palestine, and she literally said that they told her that she could become an Israeli citizen within 24 hours. Okay, interesting. Well, Trump talks a lot but doesn't take action to help American citizens. The largest percentage of homeless people in the world is in America. I mean, I think he's doing a lot of the things that he promised his supporters he would do. People in America are super excited. Not everybody, but a large portion are excited about his immigration that he's been doing. There is a couple things he has heavily dropped the ball on. Epstein, for example, was a massive one. Where, as far as I'm aware, a lot of his supporters are still, even his supporters are still pissed off at him. As far as American citizens go, it depends on the American citizen, but I think most people who are aware of it aren't okay with what Trump was doing with that at all. So I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think he is exclusively not taking action to help Americans. I think he's taking some actions, but whether or not those actions are, one, effective, or two, up to the standard that he said he would be doing them during the election, now that's a different story. And the thing is we would have to do a lot of research into it to actually see, to get some sort of quantifiable idea of what that actually looks like, right? Like, to actually be able to say, okay, how many promises did he make? How many has he fulfilled? How many has he attempted to fulfill, but his attempt was bullshit, right? Like, we would want to get like real numbers for that in order to actually know. Everybody's got their feeling on how they feel about Trump, but those tend to be feelings. They tend to be emotions. They tend to be, oh, I don't like him for this, or I love him for that, and whatever. And that kind of stuff can kind of muddy the waters as to whether or not the objective facts, right? It muddies the objective facts of the situation, right? Now, he does promise a lot. He made a lot of promises during his campaign. And again, some of them, like the immigration, it seems like he's coming through on. To his supporters, to people who don't support his policies with immigration, they're very upset about his policies. But to a lot of his supporters, they would actually say that that's a sign that he's doing the right thing. If he's pissing off like liberals and progressives, and his supporters would tell you, oh yeah, he's doing a good job. Now, again, that's one front though. There's other fronts where you could very much make the argument that he either hasn't done a very good job or he hasn't done anything as of yet whatsoever, right? Now, this right here though is something that I do think is good. I think this right here is one example that so far is a win. So far, it's a win. Guaranteed fair banking for all of Americans. That's definitely a win for me. Thus far, we're going to keep looking into it to see how much of a difference it actually makes, though, because that is important, too. It's all nice to say, oh, look, I did this thing. Here you go. Boom. But does that thing do anything? That's what we're kind of looking at right now. So as a result of these Operation Choke Point and other what are the other situations in which banks decided that they were going to police lawful activities of different businesses because of their political motivations or affiliations. As a result, individuals, their businesses, and their families have been subjected to debanking on the basis of their political affiliations, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities, and have suffered frozen payrolls, debt, and crushing interest, and other significant harms to their livelihoods, reputations, and financial well-being. Such practices are incompatible with a free society, and the principle that the provision of banking services should be based on material, measurable, and justifiable risks. Such practices, when yielded to discriminate against customers and businesses in credit transactions due to their religion, are also unlawful under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. They further undermine public trust in banking institutions and their regulators, discriminate against political beliefs and free expression of those beliefs, and weaponize political regulatory state. Political regulatory state. That's all good. Loving all this so far. So, Section 2, policy. Burping up a fucking storm here, my bad. It is the policy of the United States that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their constitutionally or statutorily protected beliefs, affiliations, or political views, and to ensure that politicized or unlawful debanking is not used as a tool to inhibit such beliefs, affiliations, or political views. Banking decisions must instead be made on the basis of individualized, objective, and risk-based analysis. Liking it all so far. Definitions. The term politicized or unlawful debanking refers to an act by a bank, savings association, credit union, or other financial service provider to directly or indirectly adversely restrict access to or adversely modify the conditions of accounts, loans, or other banking products or financial services of any customer or potential customers on the basis of the customer's or potential customer's political or religious beliefs, or on the basis of the customer or potential customer's lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with or disfavors for political reasons. Now, that last sentence really makes me think that this would 100% apply to Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal, right? Cannot do so on the basis of lawful business activities that a financial service provider disagrees with. Just because you disagree with what they're purchasing, if it's lawful, you don't get to fucking tell them that they can't. It's crazy that anybody has to say that. It's crazy that Visa and MasterCard need to be told this. You know what I'm saying? That's wild. One more term here. Federal banking regulators refer to the Small Business Administration, SBA, and the federal member agencies of the Financial Stability Oversight Council with supervisory and regulatory authority over banks, savings associations, or credit unions. Okay, so the federal banking regulators. We'll save that for whenever we run across that term. Mm. Well, I mean, as far as Diddy goes, so you asked about Diddy. What happened with Diddy? So far, he hasn't done anything with Diddy. There was a conversation that he was going to pardon Diddy, and if he does that, that's extremely fucked up, very fucked up. But so far, Trump hasn't done anything with Diddy, though. He hasn't pardoned him or anything like that. Diddy got off on charges. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, to be honest. I don't even know if I want to get into that because I don't know enough about that particular situation. I know that a lot of people in the music industry are of the opinion that that dude was rapey as shit, like super creepy super creepo rapey person, and that's no good. It seems like he got a very light sentence comparative to what he maybe probably should have gotten, but that's based off of a very minimal amount of knowledge that I actually have on the situation. So unfortunately, I almost don't want to dive too deep into Diddy's shit because I don't know enough about and who really wants to dive into Diddy shit after that? But yeah, I don't know enough about Diddy himself or that case. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, again, like he was cleared of. See, I don't even remember the charges, to be honest with you, man. I know he was cleared of like trafficking, I think it was, or no, he got found. He was found guilty. Got found. He was found guilty for prostitution, right? Like conspiracy to commit prostitution or something like that. And ultimately, he was given like I think 5 years in prison. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he only got a few charges that would put him away. I think it was for like a total of 5 years. And that is totally like, I mean, again, whether it's bullshit or not, I don't know enough about the case. It doesn't sound good, but that didn't have anything to do with Trump, unless Trump actually ends up pardoning him, which I heard that was something they were speaking of, but I don't know how true that is. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Same with Epstein. I think everybody is pretty confident that he's not going to do shit with Epstein, and everybody's pretty pissed about that for sure. That's definitely somewhere where Donald Trump has absolutely dropped the ball. I did a whole stream, like a whole 3 hour stream on that, because when that whole incident unfold, well, you were there for that. You remember that, Razor. Like when that whole incident unfolded, I was blown the fuck away. I was like, bro, that sucks. That's you really fucking the pooch on that one, man. Screwing the pooch, son. That's what you're doing. So do better, do less pooch screwing. Okay, removing reputation risk and politicized or unlawful debanking. Okay, so within 180 days of the date of this order, each appropriate federal banking regulator shall, to the greatest extent permitted by law, remove the use of reputation risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking, as well as any other considerations that could be used to engage in such debanking from their guidance documents, manuals, or other materials, other than existing regulations or other materials requiring notice and comment rulemaking used to regulate or examine financial institutions over which they have jurisdiction. Okay, so who needs to remove this? Each federal banking regulator shall remove the use of reputation risk. That's a big one because reputation risk is the reason for PayPal and MasterCard what they've been doing. Okay, they don't want to risk their reputation by allowing you to purchase video games that have sexual content in them, even though they're totally fine with you purchasing OnlyFans or a subscription to Pornhub, which, by the way, Pornhub, I don't know too much about it, but they just had a whole case too because there was a bunch of fucking child porn on their platform. And I think that's like the second or third time that has happened. And here's MasterCard. They're perfectly okay with you using your money for that. But they don't want you to use your money to purchase a video game that has sexual content in it. It is fucking silly. So removing all reputation risk. Mind you, again, it's the federal banking regulators that have to remove the law of reputation risks, or permitted by law to remove the use of reputation risk. Federal banking regulators are the SBA and agencies of the Financial Stability Oversight Council that have supervisory and regulatory authority over banks. They have to remove that from their guidance documents, manuals, and other materials. Other materials that don't include existing regulations or other materials requiring notice and comment rulemaking. My headphones just pooped out on me. Hold on, give me a minute to plug that in. So, you see, this is why you read this shit, okay? This is why you look into it and you read the documentation closely, because, yeah, my headphones are acting like a bunch of... Oh, okay, they decided to work. Great. So that's... I don't know about that. Okay, it's not the banks themselves. It's not the financial institutions themselves that have to remove the use of reputation risk or equivalent concepts from their manuals. It is the federal banking regulators have to, the people who regulate them. And they don't have to remove it from existing regulations. I mean, I might be, okay, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe I'm just a fucking stupid head. And I totally read all that wrong. But I'm not going to go with, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm not a stupid head. I'm just going to throw that out there. And that doesn't sound, I don't like that. They should have to take it out of their existing regulations, right? Why would you put that little bit in there? They should I feel like they should have to take it out of their existing regulations because that's what they're currently using. And it shouldn't be the federal banking regulators that have to. It should be required of the actual financial institutions. Yeah, they're the ones that should have to remove the rule. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know about that. The removal of such concepts shall be made clear by each appropriate federal banking regulator through formal guidance to their examiners. The federal banking regulators shall also consider rescinding or amending existing regulations. Okay, they should consider. They shall also consider rescinding. I'm glad that they at least touched on existing regulations, but it says they should also consider. You fuckers should get rid of it, not consider it. Get it the fuck out of here, right? Consistent with applicable law, to eliminate or amend any regulations that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking, and to ensure that any regulated firm's or individual's reputation is considered for regulatory, supervisory, bankery, or enforcement purposes solely to the extent necessary to reach a reasonable and apolitical risk-based assessment. And that's all good and well, and they can say that, and the regulators can say, fine, no, we'll do that. But how are you going to check on that? How are you going to actually check in on them and say, okay, is your risk-based assessment apolitical and is it reasonable? Or did you overstep your bounds in regards to this reputation risk? You see what I'm saying? I would like to know that. Maybe they tell us a little bit farther into the documentation here, but I don't like the idea of they shall also consider rescinding or amending existing regulations consistent with applicable law to amend or to eliminate or amend any regulations that could result. So I don't like that. They should just have to remove it flat ass. That's it. Just get it out of here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, absolutely. No. Yeah, no, as far as like the Epstein stuff goes, yeah, Trump lost all credibility. His entire cabinet did, as far as that issue goes, as far as I'm concerned, anyways. Other people have different opinions on it, but that is my personal opinion. I can't speak for everyone, but my opinion is, yeah, I don't care what Trump says about any of it. I don't trust him. But as far as the Pornhub stuff goes, damn you, what is this, Norton Security, fuckhead? Get out of here. I'm secure. Move along. Yeah, so that is crazy though, that they're gonna censor what games people can purchase, but they have no problem with you purchasing Pornhub. Even though Pornhub has content on it that, as of right now, has gotten them in legal fucking trouble because it's actually illegal. Nope, you can totally use your credit card for that. That is fucking insane. That is such a belligerent fucking double standard that it angers you to your core. It's so ridiculous. Okay, so there's the first bit. This is about removing reputation risk and politicized unlawful debanking. Within 180 days, federal banking regulators have to get into their manuals and all their documentation and remove anything in regards to this reputation risk. And they shall also consider rescinding any existing regulations. Okay. Part B. The SBA shall, within 60 days of the date of this order, give notice to all financial institutions with which it guarantees loans under its lending programs, requiring that each financial institution that is subject to the SBA's jurisdiction and supervision does the following. Okay, here we go. The financial institutions. What do these fuckers have to do? All right, they have to do 1, 2, 3 separate things if they're going to continue to take loans under the SBA. Okay, now I don't know how many financial institutions do that. I don't know if that applies to MasterCard and Visa. Okay, we'd have to look into that. But it's a start. At least we're talking about financial institutions. Give me a... I don't know why I have to cover my face, but nasty throat noises, you know. Okay, 1. Within 120 days of the date of this order, makes reasonable efforts. These are the financial institutions right now. Financial institutions have to make a reasonable effort to identify and reinstate any previous clients of the institution or any subsidiaries denied service through a politicized or unlawful debanking action in violation of a statutory or regulatory requirement under Section 7A of the Small Business Act, or any requirement in a standard operating procedures manual or policy notice related to a program or function of the Office of Capital Access, with notice of the reinstatement sent to the victim. Okay, so anybody that they've taken out, said, nah, we're not going to work with you because of this reputation risk bullshit, you have to take them back. Good, I like it. Okay, number 2, within 120 days of the date of this order, identifies the financial institution must identify all potential clients denied access to financial services provided by the financial institution or any subsidiaries through a politicized or unlawful debanking action in violation of a statutory or regulatory requirement under Section A of the 7A under the Small Business Acts, or any requirement in standard operating procedures manual or policy notice related to program or function of the Office of Capital Access, and provide notice to each victim advising of the denied access and the renewed option to engage in such services previously denied. Again, you have to identify who all these people were, and you have to give them the option to get their financial whatever back. And number 3, within 120 days of the date of this order, the financial institutions must identify all potential clients denied access to payment processing services provided by the financial institution. Didn't we just read that? Did they... Potential clients denied access. They literally just popped that in twice. That's the same thing. It is the same thing. That's the exact same... Okay, so, well, there's 2, not 3 then. All right, so whoever edited this should get fired. Maybe not fired, but just like a stern talking to, all right? Like, this is the fucking whitehouse.gov shithead. Like, edit your bullshit. This is an executive order, fuckhead. You know, look over it 15 times before we fucking post the shit on the website, shitbird. Okay, Section 5, scrutinizing politicized or unlawful debanking. Within 180 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, shall develop a comprehensive strategy for further measures to combat politicized or unlawful debanking activities of financial regulators and financial institutions across the federal government, including consideration of legislative or regulatory options to eliminate such debanking. Okay, so the Secretary of the Treasury, alongside of the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, needs to develop a strategy for fucking these hoes up when they act out of line, giving them the fucking backslap when they start talking some shit. Okay, so that's a good one, number 1. B, within 120 days of the date of this order, each federal banking regulator shall conduct a review to identify financial institutions subject to its jurisdiction that have had any past or current formal or informal policies or practices that require, encourage, or otherwise influence such financial institutions to engage in politicized or unlawful debanking and to take appropriate remedial action to the extent authorized and consistent with applicable law, including levying fines, issuing consent decrees, or imposing other disciplinary measures against any financial institution subject to the jurisdiction of each of such federal banking regulator that such federal banking regulator finds as has engaged in politicized or unlawful debanking that violates applicable law. Like, they really need to, like, consider periods, too. Like, that's a run-on sentence like a motherfucker. And it doesn't make you sound smart when you write down these run-on sentences in these laws and such, you know? A comma here or there would be quite nice. Or just a fucking period. But, okay, so federal banking regulators have to identify financial institutions that have engaged in this, in the process, and they got to give them a little pimp slap. They just got to, just a little bit. Just, you know, like, this is... Just, you know, for that one time you did it, don't do it again. And C, within 180 days of the date of this order, the federal banking regulator shall review their current supervisory and complaint data to identify any financial institution that has engaged in unlawful debanking on the basis of religion, and if such financial institution is unable to obtain compliance within the meaning of 15 U.S.C. yada yada yada, refer such matters to the Attorney General for an appropriate civil action as appropriate. That's redundancy right there. They should get me to type these things up because I would really, you know, make it nice and spiffy. Okay. And this is the last little bit. Let's run through this real quick. Get a big breath for all the run-on sentences. General provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect 1. The authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. And so that's A. Nothing in this order affects those people, any executive department or agency, or the head of the functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And then B. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to availability of appropriations. C, this order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit substantive, yeah, that's the right word, or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, agents, or any other person, so this doesn't apply to the government. And D, the costs of publication for this order shall be borne by the Small Business Administration. So you're all paying for it too. We're going to come in, we're going to regulate your ass, and you're going to pay us for it. Okay, that's all good stuff. I'm liking that so far. Random dating. Oh, well, there's multiple dating apps that do that, man. Tons of them. I mean, I think I don't even know how many there are anymore, but yeah. I mean, I haven't been dating in a long time. You know, me and my cutie pie have been together. Well, I mean, we're going on about 1.5 years now. You know, so I haven't been on any app since then. But before we met, there was multiple dating apps that you could just get pornography off of. Like, I mean, it was like right there on the app. You know what I'm saying? So it's absolutely crazy out there. And yeah, you can use your MasterCard and Visa for all of that. You know, which, you know, this is where you and me like disagree, Razor, correct? You know, like this is a cultural disagreement between us because we're from different cultures, right? I'm okay. If people want to buy a bunch of fucking porn with their credit card, then that's on them. I think it's financially, what's the word, irresponsible to do that because there's really no reason to. There's so much free porn on the internet anyways. What are you doing here, guy? But ultimately, if they want to, that's entirely up to them. Okay. But MasterCard and Visa, one, do not get to tell anybody what they can or can't purchase. And if they're going to not tell these guys that they can't have porn, they sure as shit are not going to turn around and tell gamers, oh, you can't have games. That's crazy. That's a bewildering level of hypocrisy that I can't abide by. And if there's any kind of child pornography involved, then yes, it should be illegal. MasterCard and Visa should not tell them, oh, you can't use our credit card. MasterCard and Visa should call the proper authorities and have people put in fucking prison. You see what I'm saying? If, you know, this thing with Pornhub, they're getting sued over it and they have to shut down a bunch of stuff. I haven't looked into it deeply, so I don't entirely know what exactly they have to do. But from the cursory glance that I gave it, nobody at Pornhub is getting arrested for their website having potential child pornography on the fucking website. And that's insane. That's insane. There was child pornography on this website and nobody's getting arrested? Fuck that shit. No, they should be fucking arrested for that. That is insane. Not, oh, well, you got to take it down. Yeah, no shit, you got to take it down. You should also go to fucking prison. Somebody should go to prison. I don't care. I don't give a shit. The janitor, Joe Bob over there, send his ass to prison. Okay, maybe not the janitor, Joe Bob. That would be fucked. But somebody making some decision in that company needs to go to prison because fuck that shit, right? That's the other thing with the whole Pornhub shit, you know, but that's another issue. Anyways, that is the guarantee for fair banking for all Americans.
Finally,
now, let's go ahead
about...
and... okay, this is Chibi Reviews. I just found this guy on X and followed him because he had some very funny shit to say. And yeah, I liked what he had to say on X. Let's go ahead and watch his video on Trump bans payment processors from censoring anime and games. Okay, now, we will be honest. I like this guy, Chibi Reviews. Like I said, I just found him on X, and the few posts I saw of his made me laugh, so I started following him. I really liked his stance on the payment processors. We are in full agreement. And I like his shirt. I have that exact same shirt, by the way. But just based off the title of his video, that doesn't sound completely correct. It does sound like... It didn't sound like Trump banned any payment processors from censoring anime and video games. At least none of those words were used directly. But let's see what he has to say about it and how he's interpreting these words, because it may be you can't interpret it that way. I don't know. We're going to listen to him. Let's see what he has to say about it.
Some good news on the channel, because it's been 2.5 weeks of just non-stop bad news. Bad news after bad news, with Collective Shout contacting payment processors like Visa and MasterCard to have Steam and itch.io remove collectively 1,000 games plus, and then all the other stuff that's followed after that. I'm glad I could finally sit down and just talk about kind of the end, honestly, of this saga. Now, it's not quote-unquote the end completely, but it is a massive start. It is a start, a right step in the right direction that honestly could mark the end of what PayPal, what MasterCard, what Visa, and any other payment processor has been doing as of late. Basically, President Trump has signed an executive order, and he did this like yesterday, to where banks and payment processors can no longer block legal content from being purchased. For instance, like what Steam does, what itch.io does, if you want to buy an anime, manga, whatever. Visa and MasterCard and other payment processors, banks, for instance, are not allowed to block things all in the name of brand protection. And if you don't believe me, it literally, this is something different, actually. I'll talk about this in a second. But this right here, you can see outlines. Madam Savvy,
do it all the time.
Pointed this out with some of the things with the executive order. And you can see even payment processors are highlighted here, that they're being hit by this as well. This executive order basically is all about risk management and everything.
Wait a second. Did we miss that when we ran over this? We might have missed that. Payment processing services. Yes, we did. I'll be damned. My head must have been up my ass at that point. Within 120 days of the date of this order, identify all potential. This was the one that I thought, that's how I missed it. Yep, because I thought they had doubled up, and I thought some asshole at the White House wasn't doing their job correctly. Turns out I was the asshole. That wasn't reading the whole thing. If I had a nickel for every time that happens, I wouldn't be like particularly rich, but I would have a lot of nickels. It would be impressive. So, yes, payment processing services. Okay, see? All right, Mr. Chibi Reviews. This fucking guy. Give him a like, subscribe to his channel. Glad we watched his video. Good guy. Okay, yeah, let's pop the video back up. Glad we saw that, though.
Anything about that, or reputation risk. It's where these banks cannot just stop legal purchases of content. If it's legal within the country, it cannot be stopped. That's more or less the summary of what Trump's executive order is. Now, before we go any further, you're probably wondering why I look like I'm in a lot of pain, or a little bit stressed, or talking a little bit sporadically. It's because I had surgery yesterday. If you watch my video, you know, and I'm going to play a clip from my surgery, actually. It's literally the clip I'm going to show you. It's about 25 seconds long, but it's literally me being up for about 3 minutes. Like, I literally just came to, and the first thing I said to my fiance, like, record me. I want people to see my reaction. So, here, I'll play the clip, and this is why I'm acting like I am right now.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is important. The shooter who murdered my sweet little Daniel brought a highly lethal weapon with him.
I lived, guys. I think they might have taken one of my
He's
balls.
in the Dragon Ball Z
Why,
shirt.
I don't know. I can't check right now, but they just out got an IV and everything. I'm gonna have to censor this in post. I don't want to share my information, but yeah, it kind of hurts, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
What kind of surgery did
So
he
as
get?
you can see, I was incredibly, let's just be honest, I was kind of high in that clip. I was on some heavy anesthesia and whatever they had me on because of the surgery. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I am in a lot of pain right now. They got what order does. It forces these banks and payment processors to just stop what they've been doing for the last few weeks and honestly for years now. But the problem is that this executive order is an executive order. It's not a law. However, this could give way to eventually making a law that's similar to this.
Very good point. Yeah, we're going to watch another video about that here in a little bit, but he makes a very good point here. This isn't a finalized law. This is an executive order. It can be completely redone here in 4 years. It can be removed by the next president, right? They can say, get that the fuck out of here, you know. And I believe because it's an executive order, the financial institutions can say, no, we're not going to do this, and then take the government to court over it. If it's a law, they can't do that. If it's a law, you can't say, well, I'm not going to follow the law. I'm going to take it to fucking court. You know, like somebody arrests you for murder and you say, oh, I'm going to fucking sue the government for arresting me for murder. Like, that doesn't happen as far as I'm aware. I don't think that's a thing. It is a thing, though, if it's an executive order. I'm pretty sure. I'm not, super smart, but I got my moments, and I think this might be one of those moments where I'm lucid enough that I'm remembering this correctly. You can absolutely sue the government over an executive order and refuse to follow it. Okay, a law you can't.
Which brings up the image I showed at the beginning of the video, the Fair Access to Banking Act. So this is a law currently in Congress for the United States. As you can see, it's in a similar state as like the Kids Online Safety Act and the Screen Act. It's just been introduced, earlier this year around February and all that. Sorry, my vision's a little bit blurry from everything. But basically, it got introduced this year. It's still not been voted on or anything. It hasn't went to the House or the Senate or anything like that. But more or less, what this bill does, if it becomes a law, is the exact same thing Trump signed as an executive order yesterday. That it would cause banks to not basically censor content that would be reputation risk, even if it's legal content, for instance. It would just force these banks to allow the payments to go through. It's just great news overall. So, just because we have this executive order doesn't mean it's the end, because once, let's say, theoretically Trump is out of office, or if this executive order is removed to some reason, let's say a judge or whatever blocks it, we're going to be back to the exact same thing. It's going to be the exact same issue that we've been dealing with. So the big thing here to take away from this is it's a step in the right direction, but don't forget to call your senators about the co-sponsors that are on this bill, and just, to make sure your senator knows that you want this bill to pass, because it would do the very thing that Trump just did. Now, we need to get into this one with Trump, okay? So, obviously, I've been talking negatively about both parties.
Now, that's important. Yeah, that's good to know. We might need to take some time. If we don't have time on stream, I'll definitely take some time tonight after the stream to research that Fair Banking Act to make sure that that law really does say everything that the executive order says, that they're both the same, and nobody's pulling a fast one on you. Because government does that. They tend to do that. So both parties have done that too, by the way, many times throughout history. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that's good to know. That's really good to know that there is an actual law that is possibly going to be put on the books for this. Because ultimately, that's what's going to shut the conversation down. And yeah, what was this guy? Chibi? Was his name Chibi? Chiri? Chili? Chibi. Chibi pointed out the payment processor that we missed, that paragraph, that would absolutely affect MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal. They would be done. They wouldn't be able to do any of this bullshit that they're pulling. And that would be awesome. That's exactly what we want to see. So, yeah, we really want to see that law gets passed. And we might perhaps pull that law up just to see what's in it. And, yeah, I don't know how effective it is, if I'm being honest with you. Okay, my first intuition would be to say, maybe it works, but only to an extent. But yeah, calling your senators or emailing their senators, U.S. representatives, calling them whatever, just to express that you support this bill. This is important to people, you know, that sort of thing at least kind of helps. Because ultimately, like these senators and House representatives, not all of them, but for the most part, they are supposed to pass laws and bills that their constituents want. Okay. Now it doesn't always pan out that way, as we're all well aware here in America, but that is the way it's supposed to go, right? So, anyways, let's see what he has to say about Trump, though. I am curious. I wasn't going to continue the video, but I do want to know what he's got to say because this sounded interesting. I've been talking negatively about both parties. Okay, all right, dog. Let's see.
Left and right as of late when it comes to this whole censorship stuff. When it comes to like the Screen Act and the Kids Online Safety Act, it's not good. And on top of that, with the whole Epstein list, and I'm just going to tell you how Trump has handled the Epstein list is not a good look by any means. It really does stain his entire image, regardless.
Yeah, me and Razor just had that conversation. Not a good look. The way Trump has handled Epstein was just a massive fucking ball drop. Did a whole stream on that. And yeah, censorship from any side of the aisle. And that is the thing, is right now, from what we know, the censorship that is coming from MasterCard and Visa is supposedly coming at the behest of a political activist group in Australia called Collective Shout that, we did read an article that categorize them as a conservative Christian group. I have yet to see anything from them themselves that categorizes themselves as that. They categorize themselves as a feminist activist group. And so, it doesn't matter if it's coming from the left wing or the right wing, any level of censorship, particularly when it comes to like freedom of speech freedom of expression is bullshit. I'm not behind it. Doesn't matter if it's for religious purposes. Back in the day, Christians were attempting to censor a lot of bands, and Tipper Gore and a lot of Democrats were also involved with that back in the 90s. But there was always a constant movement to try to censor music, particularly on the Christian front was censoring heavy metal music, right? Black Sabbath and then Slayer and whatnot. And it doesn't matter if it's that or if it's this like hyper progressivism where we're going to censor this because we feel like it's unsafe for certain communities for this product to be out here. Like, no, either way, I don't give a flying fuck. It doesn't fly. No bueno.
If you like Trump or not, you have to admit, however he's handled this, it's not been good. It's not been a good look. And so if he can do this, like for instance, if he can continue with this executive order and we can eventually get the Fair Access to Banking Act or whatever passed, and then he releases the Epstein list, it would really benefit him a lot. I think it would catapult him and make his presidency a slam dunk. But I'm still, regardless if this is good news or not, it still doesn't address the other elephant in the room, which is that list that does need to be talked about, because we've just had so much rampancy with corruption and this censorship and invasion of privacy. Don't think, I've forgotten, or any of us have forgotten about what these governments are trying to pass with, for instance, KOSA. So
imagine being able to build an app with your name on it.
Imagine if I could watch a movie without you fucking it up.
This is a good thing, but I'm not going to let this distract me from the big objective here, which we do need to see, is that Epstein list. It does need to be released. We do.
Sure, I can agree with him on that. But aside from all that, yeah, he's correct on the Epstein stuff, absolutely. Like I said, this Chibi dude, give him a subscribe and a like on his channel. I like his thoughts, man. I like where he stands on all this shit. Fucking A. He is correct. This is kind of what Razor was discussing earlier in the chat. When it comes to Donald Trump, when it comes to Donald Trump, whether or not what he's doing is effective, there's a difference between making a promise and doing nothing, making a promise, doing something, and the something you did ultimately doesn't do anything, or it doesn't, barely moves the needle, as Razor said. Those are two different things, but ultimately they end up in the same place where you made a bunch of promises and nothing happens, okay? And when it comes to this specific issue, whether or not something happens heavily depends on that Fair Banking Act being passed into law. That is going to be the deciding factor. If that doesn't get passed, then there's a good chance that this is going to go in that same basket that Razor was discussing earlier, where this is just going to be another instance of Donald Trump making a promise, pretending to do something, or half-assing what he did, and it ultimately going nowhere. We need that Fair Banking Act to pass. That has to pass, right? Okay, so after I get done burping in your face, you're lucky I caught that one. That was nasty. It was a wet burp. Okay. So anyways, let's see. What other videos did I have on this?
We've all been talking about censorship in the video game industry, but it is happening worldwide and it is brutal. But
this is Veridark. How am I not subscribed to her? Give her a like and a thumbs up. This is her talking about the Visa MasterCard screwed over by executive order. Valve itch.io can't be debanked for selling NSFW games. Let's see. Yeah, let's just see what she says about it, because we were going to watch her video last Wednesday. I had a Veridark video that I was going to show you guys on this topic, because me and her, our views do align on this topic, and I never got around to it. So let's just see a little bit of her video. We're just watching just a teeny tiny bit, and if you like her, hit her channel, Veridark, Dark Titan Media. Subscribe, give it a like, as I just did. I do like a lot of her takes in the gaming world, especially on this censorship issue. She's 100% correct. I don't know about this video. We're going to watch this video, see what she has to say. It does seem like she feels like this executive order is going to kick Visa and MasterCard in the bootay. So hopefully she is correct. I hope she is.
We are hearing that the Visas and the MasterCards of the world are able to actually control our entertainment. There is now an executive order that is going against debanking that could make a big difference in our fight. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to the predicament we find ourselves in. One move isn't going to change the entire landscape when it comes to censorship.
You guys would probably much rather enjoy watching this video with her face instead of my ugly face covering hers. So let's just move me over. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
But any
much
help
better.
is
Yeah.
still good, and it does still deserve to be talked about. Now, of course, I've been talking a lot on the channel about Visa and MasterCard, but if you don't know, storefronts like Steam and itch.io delisted adult games and made them harder to find, and it seemed that the culprits were Visa and MasterCard. Both platforms said that their decision to pull or de-index certain games was motivated by the fear of losing access to the major payment infrastructures that their storefronts rely on. itch.io went one step further and stated that the responsible party was an activist group known as Collective Shout, which has spent years waging campaigns against games depicting violence against women. Collective Shout later confirmed that it had influenced actions taken.
I was going to say, it wasn't just itch.io that said that. Collective Shout themselves came out and said that. And if you remember, last week we actually read an article where somebody had said, no, they didn't have that influence. They're just lying. And maybe they are. Maybe they are lying. Maybe they didn't have shit to do with it. But they sure as fuck took responsibility for it. And they're sure as fuck getting raked over the coals on social media for it right now, as they should be. They were so quick to jump on that pony and be like, look at me, everybody, I made censorship happen. Aren't I a good person? Well, now they ain't saying that. Now they're running and hiding behind their, shut off comments and their private profiles and all that bullshit. So kind of funny how that works, huh? These authoritarians have such big fat balls when they think everybody's going to love what they do. And the second everybody is like, no, fuck you, boop, everything gets put on private, comments shut off, all the bullshit.
Taken by Valve and itch.io after writing an open letter to Visa and MasterCard, but that it did not necessarily ask itch to de-index all NSFW games. Now, they are, of course, using the wording that, oh, they're trying to protect women and they're trying to protect the kids, when really they're not trying to protect anything except their bottom line. They're trying to profit and gain power and control over this industry. And they,
again, important to note, Collective Shout, you know, we talked about them last week, but Visa and MasterCard don't give a fuck about kids. These are major corporations. They don't give a fuck about people, okay? You know, I have to tell people this on both sides of the political spectrum. You know, every time MasterCard, Visa, Ford, GM Motors, fucking General Electric, whatever, posts a pride flag in their bio for Pride Month, they don't give a fuck about LGBTQ people. You understand that, right? They don't give a flying fuck about you or your rights or none of that shit. They just are trying to sell you a product. They are trying to get you in as a customer to sell you. Okay, and conservatives will be really quick to point this out. And you almost have to point it out back to them. It's the same thing when any of these countries post, these companies, these corporations post an American flag on Flag Day or Memorial Day, or a big banner on social media that says, thank you to our vets. Visa and MasterCard don't give a fuck about our veterans. They don't give a shit about them. They don't give a shit about anybody. They give a shit about money. They put that shit on there every 4th of July to get all of you conservatives to come in and spend your money. And then, what is it, March, whatever month is Pride Month? We just had it. It's the same as like the Men's Mental Health Month. I only even remembered that because they happened on the same month and I missed it. But regardless, whatever month that is, they go and they appeal to the opposite side of the political spectrum. You see, these companies don't give a fuck. And look, for the record, I'm not saying that they need to, okay? I'm not over here like full-blown communist, like we must seize the means of production. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, just know they don't give a fuck about you. Corporations don't give a fuck about you. They give a fuck about their money. Yeah. So, yeah, they don't give a shit about children. These are the same people that just allowed how many guys to purchase what was the little girl? She was like famous when she was like a little girl. Now she just turned 18 like last week and was on OnlyFans and blew up. Like, I seen the post, Little Tay, right? Little Tater Tot, something like that. Little Tater Tot gal blew, you know, had posts all over X where she blew up like $1 million in like a few hours or some shit like this on OnlyFans because of all you horny little fuckers that can't keep it in your goddamn pants. Literally the day she turns 18, you're over here whacking off to her, you fucking weirdo, you know. And yeah, 18's legal, fine. Look, that's the hard cutoff. If she's 18, I don't give a fuck. Do your shit. But come on, y'all. Y'all were literally sitting there waiting for it. 16, 17 years old, this girl, and you were sitting there with your fucking lotion and your dick in your hand, like counting down the fucking time like a fucking weirdo. And that's weird. You are a fucking weirdo. You're not a predator. You didn't do nothing illegal. But you're still weird as a motherfucker. Stop being so fucking weird. You know, do something normal with your penis, right? Keep it in your fucking pants. You know, go put it in a girl that's of legal age. You know, don't sit there and fucking play with it or wait to play with it till some fucking 16-year-old turns 18. That's weird. You're weird. Stop being fucking weird, right? And still don't. MasterCard was A-okay with all that. They don't give a flying fuck about kids. They don't give a shit about kids.
Had fought to attack video games and really get the gaming landscape changed back during Gamergate 1, and they completely and utterly failed, but they're trying it again. Now they see an opportunity, and I don't think that Collective Shout really influenced credit card companies. I believe that this was their plan all along. I guess we don't technically know, but we do know that games were removed, and Collective Shout was one of the responsible parties, one of the factors in this censorship, but we now are
So Vera here agrees with that article that we read. They are just taking credit, but they didn't actually do it. Interesting. That would be even funnier. I mean, we do know those Collective Shout people, they are 100% a bunch of fucking liars. I mean, you can go look at their tweets. They're claiming that it's all men that are going against them when, you know, Madam Savvy and Vera Dark here are like spearheading a large portion of this movement against Collective Shout, they're lying their fucking asses off. They're full of shit. They're a bunch of goddamn liars, and they would lie about this kind of shit. Yeah? You know what I'm saying?
Actually hearing about
All in my opinion.
this executive order. I had made a couple of posts on it on X. For some reason, I couldn't put the official White House link in my original post, which is mighty suspicious. But this executive order came
Mighty
down today, and it
suspicious.
clearly states banking services can't be denied because of protections provided by the Constitution of the United States. It mentions companies have 180 days to remove any provisions from their terms of service that mention reputational damage to themselves due to the fact that they must provide all lawful citizens with banking services. Keep in mind that companies like Visa and MasterCard do have it outlined in their terms of service that they can force you to remove any content that they demand that could be damaging to their brand or risk their reputation. So it's a very similar wording. And companies like Visa and MasterCard can no longer deny payment for something that, in their opinion, lacks artistic value but is legal in the United States of America, which Valve had pointed to their rule that outlines that sales of products or services that are patently offensive and lacks serious artistic value or any other material that the corporation deems unacceptable to sell in connection with a mark are a violation of this rule. So while this executive order was released primarily because of political censorship, we are talking about there being a slew of reasons why this is positive. I mean, creators like me could have previously been targeted, but I'm not going to read this entire thing, though I am going to read the basics of it. Financial institution.
Okay, well, we already read it, so just wanted to get Veridark's opinion on it. And go check out her channel on YouTube, Veridark, Dark Titan Media, if you're interested. Does a lot of gaming content, stuff like that. And when it comes to this topic, 100% in agreement with her. Think she kills it. Okay, so now this is obviously a bunch of people talking on Reddit. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt. It's fucking Reddit. But this is in the Steam subreddit. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on August 7th aimed at ending so-called debanking, where financial institutions deny services based on political or ideological beliefs. How can MasterCard, Visa deny processing payments for anyone for anything under this new executive order? Make it make sense. And so we're going to go over just this conversation. Ryzen. I thought that said Razor. I thought that was Razor from the chat for a second. I was like, hey, you're just fucking everywhere, bro. Executive orders aren't law. So in theory, they could still do it and challenge any action the Trump administration takes against them. Okay. So I said that earlier. You were here. You heard me. I said that earlier, right? I told you. I got my moments. I got moments where I'm not entirely retarded, and that was one of them. I was only like 20% retarded in that moment, but 80% of what I was talking about was correct. So they can absolutely choose not to follow the executive order, and when the Trump administration decides to take action against them, they can challenge that in court. Yeah, he's just answering, so don't downvote him. Yeah, give him an upvote. There you go. You're right. We shouldn't count this as a win just yet. We should also be realistic about how the law picks and chooses how it's enforced. The forces behind the recent Visa MasterCard controversy are similar to the forces behind conservative policies like online age verification. Not just similar, it's the exact same group, the Heritage Foundation. That absolutely no. Boop. I mean, as far as I'm aware, the Heritage Foundation has nothing to do with Visa MasterCard. That I don't think is true whatsoever. All of the Collective Shout is a group behind the situation. Oh, look at that. He's getting downvoted. This is Reddit. I'm going to throw it out here. I don't care. You out there watching, you might be super progressive, liberal, whatever. Okay, look, sorry, dude. Reddit is a goddamn progressive fucking hellhole, man. This guy, we did 3 hours worth of fucking reading into this last week. Nowhere was the Heritage Foundation mentioned anywhere. And yet, here this guy comes in and says, yeah, Collective Shout is the person behind it. The feminist organization. Blah, everybody fucking downvotes his ass. Because they want to blame the Heritage Foundation. Which, look, the Heritage Foundation, there's plenty of things that I have wrong with them. They're a right-wing, for those who don't know what they are, I think they're a right-wing NGO. Is that what they are? Non-government organization. They're a right-wing group of right-wingers that have views that I heavily disagree with regarding a lot of various things. They're fairly right wing, very right wing. But this is Reddit, and they just want to blame conservatives. They don't actually want to blame the people. Collective Shout. Like it or not, Collective Shout are just the fall guys. The Heritage Foundation is and always will be the real enemy driving all movements like this from behind scenes. Let's see. You have no idea what you're talking about. Instead, you're fighting windmills thinking they're giants. Well, I like windmills thinking they're giants. Literally, the whole reason it's been pushed was because Collective Shout mass spammed emails and such to payment processors. They've been trying to push for this stuff for a very long time and actually have a history of succeeding. Thank you. Yeah, upvote. Again, yeah, so while I get the dislike, as of right now, Collective Shout is absolutely the one to focus hate for, even if for a moment. We can all band together and equally say Collective Shout is for censorship, and they have been for a very long time, even if it seems heartless. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, it's Collective Shout. I mean, their Heritage Foundation could be invested in this, like this fella right here. I'm going to go, boop, down boot for you. This person could, Heritage Foundation could absolutely be involved with it. You need to show some fucking proof, because we spent 3 hours looking into this last week and not a goddamn person said anything remotely to that. So you go, Ty Norg, you and your stupid fucking name, you can find proof. Otherwise, fuck right off, right? And it is because I give a shit about Heritage Foundation. I would absolutely believe that Heritage Foundation would be behind some form of censorship, but it sure as shit isn't protecting young girls. Heritage Foundation isn't walking in here to protect women from that. No, Heritage Foundation is going to censor shit because it is against Christian views and beliefs, yada, yada, yada. It's what's explicit material, that their conservative belief systems do not think should be made legal, right? That would be their reason for censorship, right? Or it's LGBTQ. That would be, I would 100% believe that Heritage Foundation would want to censor video games because it has LGBTQ content in there. I would 100% believe that. But nothing we've read says anything like that. So just show proof, that's all. And Collective Shout is funded by conservatives and thus run by them. Give us proof. It's run by a woman who describes herself as a pro-life feminist. Well, pro-life is fairly conservative. Again, this is in Australia too, by the way. So I don't know if they have the same definitions of conservative and liberal down there. I have no fucking idea. So not a real conservative as her views don't align with true conservative views. Well, I don't give a shit on any of that. There was a guy who posted a video earlier about the true mastermind behind the movements. Conservatives are deeply involved in censorship. Well, yeah, they've censored anything to do with LGBTQ and critical race theory along with porn. Well, yeah, I would see conservatives censoring that. Absolutely, for certain. Okay, but you can show proof. You can show proof that it's actually, that's happening. And that's a whole, they're going into a whole diatribe about CRT. Let's see. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that is true. Again, both sides engage in censorship, but yeah, you just got to be honest. And again, this is Reddit, so anything, they're just going to piss and moan about Republicans. Okay, I thought they were going to give us some reasons, though. I'm not invested in all this. I don't give a shit. Okay, the executive order had nothing to do with the Steam situation. Its intent is to protect crypto scams from getting demonetized. Okay, well, let's see what people have to say about that. The congressional legislation about debanking also wouldn't help Steam's situation, contrary to what many have been claiming. There's nothing in the bill to prevent what Visa and MasterCard are doing to Steam. Also, there's 0 Democratic sponsors for this bill, which should be a big red flag. Okay, we're getting into it's all conservatives' fault again. The bill is meant to protect other, often conservative groups that are more politically controversial and face banking issues like gun groups, as well as to address. Now, that part is true. That they did say directly in the executive order that it is specifically to protect political opinions, and they gave examples of people on the right who had gotten debanked, right? Okay, but as far as this guy giving us this idea that it's to protect crypto scams, they can show proof. Boop, you can show proof. I don't give a fuck about that. And this idea that it doesn't have anything to do with Steam, I mean, it directly says payment processors. Yeah. Boop. I just think you're doing your bullshit. This bill would stop this. The text is no payment cards, and then he goes, yeah, contrary to your belief, it doesn't seem to have a qualifier that it only applies to gun or fossil fuel groups. Boom, thank you. If that is a text, then yeah, it might not be aimed at this Steam and yada yada, but it would cover it. So, and while, yeah, that exact paragraph was the paragraph, the one that Chibi went over on his video, that is the paragraph that would cover this. Absolutely. Payment processors cannot stop people from using their services based off of reputation risk. That would absolutely cover this situation, right? And so now you're bitching about tariffs. Okay, it'll come down to how it's implemented. The banks have their different activities regulated by federal agencies under the control of the executive branch. They can change the rules without new laws, provided those rules stay within the limits imposed by existing laws. Otherwise, they could trivially be contested in the courts. This has a good chance to stick, at least until the end of the current administration, since the only comments out of banks, WRT to banking, is that they're not doing it at all, at least not for the reasons called out in the EO. So it'd be a bad look to oppose this on principle and may make actual legislation on this matter more likely. Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Maybe it would. Maybe it would. Has nothing to do with the type of situation that exists within Steam. This order would be basis for a suit if a federal regulator highlighted the reputation risk to Visa and suggested they should take action. That's a fair point, but I don't think it'll come to that considering payment processors are unwilling to admit to engaging in censorship to begin with. Executive orders are directives to the executive branch's subordinate agencies on how to act. They are not laws, but you can't just ignore them because those agencies will use their executive powers to shut you down through actual legal means for violating their policies determined by the executive order. And yes, you can challenge this in the courts, but in the meantime, you're still shut down or possibly held with criminal charges, assuming the courts even agree with you. Your comment is a huge oversimplification. Ooh, he got downvoted. Not hard, but this is, and nobody responded to him. I'm going boop, up, boop, just because nobody bothered to respond to you. This is Trump, though. If they do that, though, he will see it as a personal attack against him and his authority, which means angry Trump, and angry Trump is like an elephant in a porcelain store. While true, MasterCard and Visa actually don't care at all about the content. They only care about the reputation and their money, that's it. To not damage their reputation with 200 extra loud Karens, they bowed down to their concerns about those games. That's, of course, a massive overreach, but MasterCard and Visa don't know that yet. They most likely hadn't realized. Then a horde of tens of thousands of gamers, yada yada, Trump came down on them as well because he doesn't like others taking power. MC and Visa are currently pissing themselves. You know, I guess I don't know if any of that is true, right? They're kind of mind reading in that one. Okay, but long story short, I'm not going to go through this whole fucking thread, even though Reddit is very entertaining. I just wanted to give you the conversation that was happening, some different opinions. You know, we listened to some people who said, oh yeah, this is going to have an effect. And then we have some people here who are saying it doesn't have effect. Okay. Now, before we get off of this particular topic and move on to the next one, because I got a lot of material to cover on that, we're going to see what Steam says about it. So they have a really quick little write-up right here. Donald Trump's new executive order has cracked down on credit card company overreach in the USA. Oh, this is shampoo that says that. What is this? This isn't a forum. Oh, okay. Well, let's see what the people are having in the forum then. That's my bad. I thought this was something Steam had actually put out. But that was me fucking it up. That was at 20% of my retard moments. That's what that was. It appears the credit card companies overplayed their hand. They are not the government. They don't make laws. And now the executive order cracks down on them, taking down legal content based on quote unquote feelings. What the credit card companies are doing is wrong. They are doing cultural and economic imperialism, basically saying their culture is the only culture that is appropriate, and they will debank you because your culture doesn't matter and your laws don't matter either. This is why laissez-faire doesn't work. We need the government to step in and regulate the market forces, and this time the credit card companies lost. Basically, the executive order basically indicates credit card companies cannot debank anyone based on feelings, and they have a limited amount of time to comply with the executive order or face lawsuits and fines, something that no company would want to deal with. Okay, let's see what people are saying about it. Why would the government care about credit card companies restricting the games you play? After all, it's just porn. reading comprehension. Executive orders only affect government departments. They are not king's decrees. You don't know what you're talking about. And this person responded back, because at the end of the day, it is censorship, and Trump is very anti-censorship. And this person responded back, my bad, I don't live in the U.S. Oh, okay. And do we have any examples of this EO being put into action against credit card companies? I know it's only been a few days, but it's only been a few days. So I'd give it a bit before we can say this does anything relevant to the discussion about who gets a say in Steam's storefront curation. Very true. That's honestly, like, just waiting a few days to see what happens is probably like the most reasonable view out of every comment we've read so far. Right. So there's a lot of people in these comments that also seem to feel like this isn't going to have that big of effects. So that's unfortunate to see too. So both of these views,
that the acquiring banks are terminating.
Both of these videos here, Smash JT, I introduced you guys to him last week. I'm sure you guys, anybody who's watching me probably already knows who he is because he has a much bigger audience than I do. And Hero High, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Hero High. I really like this guy. And they're both just released videos, I think today, both of them. PayPal just dumped Steam, and Valve has officially responded, and Steam debanked by PayPal. So, yeah, 6 hours ago. Both of these guys released this video today. So today, even after this executive order, it turns out PayPal don't give no fucks. PayPal gives no fucks. Honey Badger gives no fucks. They are still dumping Steam. Let's see what they mean by that. Let's go ahead and hit up Hero High here and see what he has to say about it.
We have heard so much about that being the day that here on YouTube, the age verification AI system is going to be rolling out. Although,
I forgot about that.
A few days ago, it seems like we were already having preemptive issues here on the platform that very may well have been connected to this AI rolling out. Maybe YouTube updated some stuff behind the scenes that was causing issues. I'm not 100% sure, but there was some very strange occurrences, including, as discussed, a creator getting hit by the age verification AI days ago. So that was all quite odd. Currencies and uncertain of when it will be fixed. Now, this is especially interesting when you take in all the context that's been going on lately. For example, MasterCard was one of the payment processors that was getting a lot of backlash recently.
We went over this. They denied it.
All that.
Lied their asses off.
And of course, a lot of very based people were calling up these payment processors and, let's just say, annoying the heck out of them on their phone lines, right? You know the deal.
We're turning up the obsession with our new sauced and tossed tender bites, all sauced up just the way you like them.
And so a few days later, MasterCard then makes this damage control statement on Twitter. They get a ton of backlash for that. They get community noted, etc., etc. And Valve even issues a formal response. In a statement provided to PC Gamer, Valve said that it tried to work things out with MasterCard directly prior to removing the games and suggested that MasterCard did have at least an indirect influence on the outcome, saying specifically, MasterCard did not communicate with Valve directly despite our request to do so. A Valve representative said, MasterCard communicated with payment processors and their acquiring banks. Keep that in mind, acquiring banks relates to today's news. Payment processors
I don't know. What did he say that, Matt?
With Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's
policy. What does acquiring banks mean?
Communicated this with Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's policy since 2018 of attempting to distribute games that are legal for distribution. Payment processors rejected this and specifically cited MasterCard's Rule 5.12.7 and risk to the MasterCard brand. Keep that in mind too, actually. Acquiring banks and MasterCard brand. As that takes us back to whitehouse.gov.
The acquiring banks.
Government statement. I'm talking about the executive order that was recently signed. In Section 4, we'll read some of this. They talk about removing reputation risk and politicized or unlawful debanking. Within 180 days of the date of this order, each appropriate federal banking regulator shall, to the greatest extent permitted by law, remove the use of reputation risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking. And that takes us to today's news. On August 13th, right here, this article from PC Guide titled Valve Confirms Steam Purchases with PayPal Now Limited to Just 6 Currencies, Uncertain of When It Will Be Fixed. Many regions will notice PayPal no longer works on Steam. We're going to scroll right down to Valve's official statement here. And remember when I said keep in mind the acquiring bank thing from earlier?
Yeah.
Well, you can see that playing out right here too in the official statement. It reads, in early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that their acquiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the processing of any transactions related to Steam. This affects Steam purchases using PayPal in currencies other than Euro, Canadian dollar, Great Britain pound, Japanese yen, Australian dollar, and US dollar.
Okay. I'm glad he knew what all that meant, because all I knew was USD. Hey, I'm an American. Don't expect me to know more than that. All right. So, okay, it doesn't affect purchases made in any of these, right? This affects Steam purchases using PayPal in currencies other than. Okay.
We hope to offer PayPal as an option for these currencies in the future, but the timeline is uncertain. We are also evaluating adding additional payment methods on Steam for the customers affected by this. In the meantime, please use one of our other current payment methods during checkout.
I mean, I got to be honest. It seems to be related to specific currencies. It has nothing to do necessarily with censorship, correct? I mean, it seems to be, if they're...
Can't use any of the available options.
I try to highlight it. If they're allowing the payments to go through with these currencies, then it's a currency-related issue, correct? So this might not have anything to do, but that might be the point. PayPal is trying to still push this through as much as they can. They're just changing their methods. Instead of saying, oh, we don't want to incur the reputational risk of all you gooners in your fucking porn games. Yes. They say, oh, well, we're just having issues with currencies then. And so we're going to cut out any purchases that aren't made with these specific currencies. And then possibly later on down the line, these currencies get removed too. Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know. I could just be making shit up. I mean, I am making shit up, but let's see if the shit that I make up is actually correct.
You can consider using a Steam wallet code to add funds to your account. So PayPal is telling Valve that their acquiring bank is the one that's really stopping these transactions from happening in certain currencies. So This is all very suspicious, isn't it? We've got these payment processors, including PayPal, and above them, the acquiring banks that they continue to talk about, and recently PayPal putting blame on the acquiring bank for not facilitating these transactions anymore on Steam. But according to Valve, it sounded like MasterCard was communicating with other payment processors and their acquiring banks in the context that seems like they were very happy to all take action against Steam to remove certain adult games, in particular ones that people, that certain feminists in Australia, I'm talking about Collective Shout, were complaining about, right? So it makes you wonder, is this just all the fault of the acquiring banks at the top of the chain? Or is it the payment processors and the acquiring banks who are all doing this stuff together?
I mean, at the end of the day, it only matters because we need to know who needs a big old fat dick in the butt over this. Who needs to be pimp slap the fuck down and mind their fucking business. But I would imagine that the reason we don't know is because everybody's blaming everybody else, right? I mean, that's how it is. Everybody here knows they're in the wrong. Okay. If you thought you were in the right, you would come out and say, no, I'm the one who did this. Just like Collective Shout did when they thought nobody was going to throw a little hissy fit. And then when people started throwing hissy fits, then they shut everything down, turned around, said, well, we didn't, they even came out and said, well, we didn't really do that. Blah, blah, blah. We were just trying to do, they made a bunch of bullshit excuses up. Okay. And just like that, MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, they're all just blaming other people. They're all just putting, kick the can down the road, pass the buck, and they're doing that because they know this pisses people off. It pisses people off, and it's not right. If you had integrity and you believed that what you were doing had integrity as well, you would stand beside it and you would say, fuck no, I did it. You would throw the flag in the ground and say, I absolutely am the one who's doing this. If y'all disagree with me, y'all can go fuck yourselves because I'm correct and you're wrong. That's what you would say. That's how you would handle it because you feel like you are correct. They're not saying that. PayPal isn't saying that. Visa isn't saying that. MasterCard. Nobody has said this. They're all blaming acquiring banks, all blaming the intermediary banking. These people who don't even have names. Notice that. Nobody's saying, oh, yeah, it's the fucking U.S. bank over there. Yeah, it's those fuckers. It's Jim Bob at Wells Fargo. That fucking asshole. You know, nobody's giving actual names. They're saying it's our acquiring banks. You know, how many people? I mean, I'll be honest. Like, what the fuck you mean an acquiring bank? You know, like the bank that owns you, that acquired you? Like, is that what an acquiring bank is in this scenario? It's the bank that like you take loans out of? You know, I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I don't know what acquiring bank really means. I suppose we could probably research it real quick just to see what that means. It's probably worth doing. Let's do that. Let's get smarter than we currently are. You might know what an acquiring bank is. You might be smarter than me. In which case, fuck off. I'm gonna look it up. You'll be fine. You'll give me a second to look into it. Acquiring banks are financial institutions that process credit and debit card payments on behalf of merchants, facilitating transactions between customers and issuing banks. An acquiring bank, also known as an acquirer or a merchant bank, is a financial institution that enables merchants to accept credit card payments. When a customer makes a purchase using a credit or debit card, the acquiring bank processes the transaction by routing it through the card's networks to the issuing bank, the customer's bank, for approval. This process is essential for merchants to receive payments for their goods and services. So the acquiring banks, they're saying the acquiring banks, the people who actually process the transactions between the customer and the merchant and facilitate that transaction happening between bank accounts and credit accounts, debit accounts, what have you. They're the ones. It's not PayPal, it's not MasterCard, it's not Visa, it's not the credit card companies, it's the banks that are doing it, the banks that process all the payments. Okay, fair enough. That's what they're saying. That's good to know. Yeah, so, you know, they're out here blaming people that are nameless. This is nameless blaming. It's some fucking guy in some other fucking place that said some shit. No, I don't really know his name. I couldn't really tell you. You know, so nobody actually takes the blame, right? This is like little kid shit. This is like sixth grader bullshit, you know? Who was a little Timmy that fucking shit the bed, you know? And just probably somebody over there or something. Like, who did you see it? No, I didn't see nothing. Like, so they don't have to call anybody out because it was little Timmy, that gross little shit the bed. That's why he's doing that. That's why they're doing that. They aren't naming specific people because they're the ones who did it. That's what I'm going with. I'm automatically assuming it. They're giving you these faint, nebulous groups of people to blame so they don't directly blame somebody else because it's them who did it. That's what it is, in my opinion.
We don't know.
I don't know that for
details,
sure, but that's where I'm going.
Extremely suspicious, and I don't think it looks good for the payment processors or the acquiring banks, whoever those specific banks are. The only distinction that I can really make based off the publicly available...
I mean, if it's the banks that process the transactions, wouldn't it be your bank? It would be every bank then, correct? It would be every bank would be an acquiring bank because they would be the banks that are processing the transactions. It's the banks that the merchants would use, correct? You know? Or perhaps I got that wrong. But yeah, it would be every bank.
Information.
How likely would that be?
MasterCard still...
Is that more likely than one activist group of shitheads in Australia and a couple of credit card companies, or every bank that is used as an acquiring bank for any merchant to process credit card payments? Which one is more likely, you know?
It looks worse than PayPal. Like, we don't have Valve making a statement about PayPal, like going to these acquiring banks and trying to get them to take action against Steam. Instead, it's apparently all the acquiring banks' fault for what's going on with PayPal and Steam right now, according to them, unless we get conflicting information. For all I know, hypothetically, Valve comes out with a statement later today or tomorrow and it's like, no, we can actually see that PayPal went to the acquiring bank, but so far that hasn't happened. But that essentially has happened with MasterCard, where, as we went over, MasterCard was trying to deny this stuff and Valve was like, nah, you guys ain't getting out of this. We know that, sure, while you guys didn't like directly come to us, you did go to them, the them being the acquiring banks, and you know, then helped enact this censorship on our platform. So yeah, let me know what you think about that stuff as we try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And now we'll take a look at the rest of this article here from PC Game.
Okay, I'll let you head over to Hero High's YouTube account. Give him a like and subscribe. Ooh, bam. He's pretty good. He makes good shit. I do really like Hero High. Very entertaining channel. Yeah, go over there, give him a like, show him some love. And do the same with Smash JT over here. I'm already subscribed to him. He's good content creator too. And they're both really deep into this. So I'll let you go over to their channels though to finish the videos. I just wanted to hear what their opinion was on this new this new turn of events with PayPal. Fuck. Couldn't remember what I was even talking about. Yeah, this new turn of events with PayPal. Happening after Donald Trump signs the executive order. Okay? So, interesting, right? Very interesting stuff. We'll see how it turns out, though. That's all we can do is just wait and see, right? Okay, so in the meantime, though, we are going to switch gears, and we are going to start talking about the Trump deploying the National Guard and declaring federal control of the D.C. police, Washington, D.C. police. Okay, this is CNN. Let's hear what they have to say about it, because I don't know a whole lot about this particular situation. I'm just going to be honest. I've seen a lot about it on X, but that's about all I know. So let's learn about it, okay? We got a little bit of time left. Well, we got about half an hour. No, we got, yeah, like half an hour. You know, we'll go a little longer than that too if we need to, like 45 minutes more. So just to read as much as we can about this. So let's hear. Let's read. The D.C. National Guard began appearing in the nation's capital on Tuesday after President Donald Trump announced a day earlier he is deploying Guard troops and placing Washington, D.C.'s police department under direct federal control, citing a public safety emergency after an assault on a former government worker. I knew it. That was Big Balls. Okay, Big Balls started it all. CNN observed 5 armored personnel carriers near the Washington Monument on Tuesday evening. The D.C. National Guard reports only to the President of the United States. The city's status as a district, not a state, allows the President and in turn the federal government more leeway in directing troops and a range of federal authorities. Trump's additional move to take over the D.C. Police Department draws on the sweeping but temporary powers granted under the Home Rule Act of 1973, a law that balances local self-governance with federal oversight in the Capitol. While the president can assume control of the police department for up to 30 days with congressional notice, any request to control it for longer must be passed into law. Trump's announcement on Monday came after the assault of a 19-year-old former Department of Government Efficiency worker during an attempted carjacking on August 3rd. That was Big Balls. While Trump has repeatedly criticized what he describes as a surge in violent crime in Washington, overall crime numbers this year are lower than last year. Washington, D.C. will be liberated today, Trump said Monday on his Truth Social. The declaration also came as administration lawyers were in a courtroom Monday for the first day of trial over the legality of Trump's deployment of the National Guard in California in June amid protests over immigration raids in Los Angeles. Here's what to know about Trump's authority in Washington, D.C. and the implications of this unprecedented move. Okay. Yeah, let's read. Yeah, it's a bit of a long article, but let's just see what they have to say, yeah? Where are we at? Oh, we're back here. Okay. How was Trump able to take over D.C.'s police? Okay. Washington, D.C. operates under the Home Rule Act of 1973, which grants Congress oversight and authority over the Capitol while allowing district residents a limited self-governance. The act grants emergency powers to the federal government, allowing the president to take control of the city's police for up to 48 hours if he determines special conditions of an emergency nature exist, requiring the department's use for federal purposes. This marks the first time in the act's history that a president has assumed control of the city's police force. The extending the takeover for a longer period requires Trump to formally notify the chairs and ranking members of congressional committees handling D.C. affairs. Any control lasting more than 30 days would need congressional approval and must be passed into law, a highly improbable scenario given the current gridlock and closely divided Congress. So what do district leaders say? Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser, I don't know if I'm saying Muriel, I'm going to say Muriel. I like Muriel. That's a nice name. It's a good name. Muriel Browser and leaders of the Washington Metropolitan Police Department did not know about Trump's intentions ahead of his announcement. 3 sources told CNN. Browser called the move unsettling and unprecedented during a news conference Monday, saying she believes Trump's view of D.C. was shaped by his COVID-era experience during his first term when crime spiked. D.C. Police Union Chairman Gregory Fuckballs, that's not his name, Gregory Pemberton, said the group supports the move and agrees something needs to be done. So, Police Union Chairman agrees with Trump, but Mayor Muriel Bowser does not. Okay. National Guard appears in D.C. as federal agencies work with police. Trump also activated 800 soldiers from the D.C. National Guard, with up to 200 assigned to support law enforcement, according to the Defense Department. Duties for these personnel include administrative and logistical roles, as well as providing a physical presence in support of law enforcement, the Defense Department said. Beyond the police department, Trump has broad jurisdiction over the city's affairs. Numerous federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, are headquartered in the city and report directly to the administration. CNN observed the Guard members near the National Mall on Tuesday evening, as well as Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agencies, ICE, outside of Union Station, in Washington, D.C. Over the weekend, Trump moved officers from several federal agencies, including up to 130 FBI agents, to patrol with D.C. police in several neighborhoods. Crime rates in D.C. on decline since last year. And I think this is the last section of the article. Let me burp before we get to it. Just got to get it out. If I don't, it's going to come out when I'm in the middle of talking. Oh, okay. Little teeny baby burp. It didn't feel like one, though. That felt like a real gut buster, but it was a little baby burp. Despite Trump's claims Monday that crime is out of control, data shows violent crime in Washington, D.C. has been declining since its 2023 spike, with 2 years of sustained improvement. And, sorry, noises, nose is a little stuffy, allergy sort of things. There were 274 reported homicides in 2023, the city's highest number since 1997. But there was a 32% drop in 2024 to 187, and another 12% fall so far this year, with 99 reported as of Sunday. Carjacking saw a similar trend after surging to 959 in 2023. The number of reported carjackings dropped to around 500 in 2024 and has fallen further in 2025 with just 188 incidents as of Sunday. July marked the lowest monthly carjacking total since May 2020. Similarly, cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, St. Louis, Baltimore, Detroit, historically known for high homicide rates, have seen substantial declines in violent crime in 2024, 2025, or both. Okay. So we get the gist of what's happening here. Trump came in after Big Balls got beat up in a good old fight. I'm pretty sure he got jumped. I don't know, because I saw people all over X, and I'm going to be honest, it's bewilderingly partisan. Big Balls and his beat down has been bewilderingly partisan, and I don't know who's correct. I just don't, because I haven't looked too much into what this kid went through. But Republicans are saying he fought group of 15 teenagers. Wow. And I did see a picture of him. He was bloodied the fuck up. Okay. Look, I train MMA, and I've been in plenty of fist fights way before I ever got into MMA. And I've seen some people get their ass kicked. I've had my ass kicked a couple times. That kid was bloodied up. Okay. Now it didn't look like he had his jaw busted. Or orbital bones, nose looks to be fine, bleeding, but it didn't look broken. But sometimes shit can be fucked up inside and you can't really tell. That definitely happens. But there wasn't any obvious jaw cocked sideways, nose on the side of his cheek. I didn't look like he had eyebrows ripped open. He was covered in blood though. He definitely got bloodied up. There was blood coming out of his nose, but it didn't look like it was caved in or anything, right? You see what I'm saying? So he still got his booty kicked. Okay. It wasn't like a full-blown fucking curb stomping, but he got his booty kicked. And Republicans are saying, oh, it was 15 fucking motherfuckers, And then I saw today a bunch of liberals were saying it was two 12-year-old girls. Somebody posted that. It was two 12-year-old girls that beat his ass. And I don't know which is true. It's probably somewhere in the middle, right? I highly doubt he got his ass beat by two 12-year-old girls. And I highly doubt that he got jumped by 15 guys and walked away with his jaw still functional and his head not stomped in, right? You know what I'm saying? So It's probably somewhere in the middle there. But regardless, that pissed Trump off. He really likes his big balls. And so he deployed the National Guard. He can only do it for 30 days. Okay, he is allowed to do it because of the Home Rule Act of 1973. So this is all legal what he's doing, but he's only allowed to do it for 30 days. Some leaders, district leaders, Mayor Muriel Bowser disagrees with what he's doing. The DC Police Union Chairman, Gregory Pemberton, agrees with what he's doing. Okay. National Guard is taking a variety of roles, mostly just supporting the police. Regardless of what Trump has said about the crime being out of control, there has been a decline in violent crimes, carjackings, and homicides, is at least what this article says, since 2023 spike. Okay. All right. So that's the gist of it. Let's go ahead and hop to and read what the White House has to say. How long is this? Not very long. Great. Perfect. Restoring law and order in the District of Columbia. Okay, let's check it out. Section 1, background. As President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of the District of Columbia National Guard, it is my solemn duty to protect law-abiding citizens from the destructive forces of criminal activity. That obligation applies to special force in our nation's capital, where, as Commander-in-Chief of the District of Columbia National Guard, I must also ensure that all citizens can avail themselves of the right to interact with their elected representatives and that the federal government can properly function without fear of being subjected to violent, menacing street crime. Shit. I was going to try to mute it. It happened. That was that burp from earlier, right? It faked me out. I thought it was a little baby burp. It ended up being a normal size one. Okay. All right. The local government of the District of Columbia has lost control of public order and safety in the city, as evidenced by 2 embassy staffers who were murdered in May. These were the Israelis that were shot. I think. The congressional intern who was fatally shot a short distance from the White House in June, and the administration staffer who was mercilessly beaten by a violent mob only days ago. That's big balls. Citizens, tourists, and staff alike are unable to live peacefully in the nation's capital, which is under siege from violent crime. It is a point of national disgrace that Washington, D.C. has a violent crime rate that is higher than most of the dangerous places in the world. It is my duty to our citizens and federal workers to secure the safety and the peaceful functioning of our nation, the federal government, and our city. Okay, mobilizing the District of Columbia National Guard. Pursuant to my authority under the Constitution and laws of the United States and the District of Columbia, I direct the Secretary of Defense to mobilize the District of Columbia National Guard and order members to active service in such numbers as deemed necessary to address the epidemic of crime in our nation's capital. The mobilization and duration of duty shall remain in effect until I determine that conditions of law and order have been restored in the District of Columbia. So, must remain in effect until I determine. Doesn't seem like that's possible, from what CNN said. He can only do it for 30 days, regardless of what he determines after that. He would have to go to Congress in order to do it for longer. The orders of any additional members of National Guard to active service I direct the Secretary of Defense to coordinate with the state governors and authorize the orders of any additional members of the National Guard to active service as he deems necessary and appropriate to augment this mission. General provisions. This memorandum is not intended to and does not to create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any part against the United States, yada, yada, yada. So you can't sue us. Okay. I mean, you can't sue the government, or this doesn't apply to the government, whatever. Okay. So that's that was the White House's, what do you call that? Their announcements. Okay. We heard from CNN what they're doing, or what it looks like they're doing. And drink a soda. Live updates. This is from today, I believe, 13th. Yeah, today, a couple hours ago. Trump says he will request a long-term extension of DC police takeover. Okay, so he is going to, in fact, ask that they allow him to keep control of it for longer than 30 days. I'm not going to go over this whole well, for one thing, this is, I'm not going to go over this entire. I just wanted to point that out. He is, in fact, asking for a 30-day, more than the 30 days that the law gives him. Okay, so that's why it's important to know. So, given the nature of what we've seen so far, this is what's happening. This is what Donald Trump says. let's look at some crime stats. Yeah? I thought that would be fun. We'll look at some crime stats, and then we'll get some people's opinions of this on X and YouTube. You know, the usual. But let's look and see. So, district crime rate at a glance, 2025 year-to-date crime comparison. This is for Washington, D.C. This is the MPDC, right? Is that the police department? Yeah, I don't know. MPDC.com. Let's see. Okay, so here is that percentage change. Okay, offense from 2024 to 2025. Homicide down 12%. Sex abuse down 50%. Assault with a dangerous weapon down 28%. Total violent crime down 26% from 2024 to 2025. Total property crime down 4%. All crime down 7%. So crime is down, as you know, CNN did say. Here's 2024 year-end crime date, right? Is that 2025 year-to-date crime comparison? Okay, year-to-date. Here's year-end 2024 comparison from 2023 to 2024. 32% change in homicide. Negative 32%, excuse me, decrease. Okay, it's a decrease of 32% in homicide, decrease of 25% in sex abuse. Total violent crime is a negative 35% between 2023 and 24. Total property crime is down 11%. All crime is down 15%. Okay, and then we can look at the homicide trend here. 20-year homicide trend. Go from starting in 2025. 196, it goes down, it goes back up, it goes up, it goes down again, it goes down again, it goes down even further, it goes down nice and low in 2012, bumps up a teeny weeny bit, then a teeny weeny bit, oh, it goes up a little more, comes down again, goes down again, bumps back up again, bumps up again, really bumps up, goes down a little bit, really bumps the fuck up. We're at the biggest we've ever been in 2023, and then goes down, and then now has gone down again since then. Now, it is important to note there, in the last 10 years, 2023 is the worst year on record for homicides. So, this is something, there's this guy named Actual Justice Warrior who always talks about the crime rates, and he always drills it into people's heads. You know, just because the crime rate is going down, it doesn't mean it's good. Because if you're coming down off of a high, then you're still high. You can still be high. You might have a decrease of 20%, but a 20% decrease from, you know, let's just simplify the numbers. If you have a 10% decrease from 200 homicides a year, a 10% decrease would only drop you 20 homicides from one year to the next. Okay, but that 180 homicides still might be, that would still be more than, well, almost this entirety right here, almost this entire 10-year period right here. So you would still be at a high. It wouldn't be the peak, but you would be on the receiving, you would be going down for certain still. You're still going down, but crime rate is still high. Okay. But let's look into some more data though. It is good to see that crime, it's always good to see violent crime going down. I don't care. That's a that's a decent, real good percentage change right there too. Down 35%. That's from 2003 to 24. Down 26% this year. So that's great. That is awesome to see. Okay. So this is Jeff Analytics, guy on Substack. I need to sign into my Substack so I can give these people likes when I read their Substacks and subscribe to their stuff. I will have Jeff Analytics Substack links to the description, linked in the description below the video on YouTube. So if you want to read into this, you can, because we're not going to go through his entire Substack because that's a lot of information, but it's a lot of really good information. And this is ultimately just to give you a second, because those crime stats that I just went over, you know, I didn't go double check them, okay? I don't know if it was the FBI that collected those previous crime stats that we just looked at. You know, I don't do this on a regular basis where I'm looking at statistics, particularly crime stats, okay? I'm not like that Actual Justice Warrior guy that I just mentioned, where this is what he does on his fucking YouTube channel. Go check out his YouTube channel, by the way. It's really good. Give me a second. But, you know, I showed you some data. I don't know who collected the data. The data could be wrong. I have no reason to believe that it is at this point in time. I haven't seen anything to show that that data that we just looked at, that data table, was incorrect. Here, I just wanted to show you, here is a second source that confirms what we just saw, that the violent crime rate is going down in DC, right? So DC's publicly available crime data is mostly good, with the city publishing some innovative data sets. DC has incident level crime data available going back almost 15 years. They publish monthly staffing reports, carjacking, clearances, but the agency's publicly available data may be overstating the degree that violent crime is declining right now. So he does go into that, I guess, a little bit later in the article. We're not going to go over that. I do suggest you read this article, but yes, there is a possibility that the publicly available data may be overstating the degree that violent crime is declining. Okay, but it is still declining. Reviewing the agency's data clearly shows the city trends. Murder has consistently fallen since peaking in late 2023 and is tracking the city's pre-COVID trend so far in 2025. So it's still going down. Nobody's saying that it isn't. It's still going down. Carjackings in DC had an enormous surge in 2023, but have fallen consistently since then to levels consistent with the start of the pandemic. And they're still falling. Measuring DC's overall violent crime trend is a bit more complicated. Violent crime in DC is down a huge amount from where it was in the early 1990s, and we're going to look at that chart right here because it is pretty incredible. DC was fucking bad place to live in the 90s. Holy balls, I didn't even realize. And down a good bit from where it was a decade ago. Violent crime in DC fell in 2024 after increasing in 2023. That much is clear from DC's reporting to the FBI. The exact picture for 2025 is a bit murkier, though violent crime is likely falling this year as well. DC's open data is likely overstating the degree of the city's decline in violent crime rate right now, though. Okay, I guess we can get into that in a minute because he keeps saying that. It's worth just looking into. But let's start with murder. Here's the murder rate, and this is per 100,000 people. I did look it up to confirm because it just gives you this number, 27.54. If you look it up, what is the murder rate of DC per 100,000 people? It's 27.54. So 27.5 murders per 100,000 people for 2024, excuse me. That's right here at the end of the graph. So this was the peak in 2023, right? Which is, here's 2022, and here is 1997, I think that says. I can't because my cursor is all fucking in the way. They didn't time that very well. I think that's 1997, or no, 96, 93, so that's 1990. No, that's 1990 right here. Oh, here we go. No, I can't. These fuckers, I swear to God, they need to, I don't know what's the deal here. But yeah, so that's 1991, maybe somewhere in that area is 80. All the way up to 80, almost 4 times as much as where we are this year. So that's a pretty big difference, right? Now, this is what that Sean at Actual Justice Warrior always discusses on his channel. Just because you're going down from the peak that hit in 2023 doesn't necessarily mean you're down. Okay, if we look at where 27.5 is, we haven't been up to 27.5 levels since 2008. We're still higher than we were in 2028, right? Or 2028 was a little bit higher than where we are now. We haven't been that high since then, okay? And then continuing over here, 1986. We had a huge boost in 1986, or that's when it started, going up, is 1985, excuse me. And then we've been coming down slightly, but yeah, the reality is overall, you're way better than you were in the 90s for certain, but you're still not anywhere near the best. Okay, you're 13.9. We're double what looks like the second lowest point in its crime rate. We go to 1960, since they've been collecting this data, that's at 10.6. One could potentially assume that at 1960, that's when they just started collecting the data. A lot of times data will go up from the point when they start collecting it because their methods of collecting it better. Our methods for collecting data in, say, 2010 or 2024 are going to be infinitely better than our data collection methods in 1960, right? That's just logic. But, we're still double what we were in 2012 when things were at their second lowest in this country. Okay. So, it's not bad like this. It's not horrible, but it's still not good. Great would be down here. That would be good. Great would really be 0. Ultimately, that would be perfect. You're never going to get perfect, but great, would be around like 10, something like that. So, we're at 27.5. That's closer to great than it is horrible at 80, right? So that's worth noting. And we don't need to look at that. Or you can if you want, but you can look at that on your own time. This is interesting. Juvenile arrest for carjacking. This is something that I have seen a couple of videos on. Supposedly, the juvenile crime rate is really what has exploded over the last year. And you can see that. Even though violent offenses, violent crimes, specifically homicide, has fallen since 2023, juvenile carjacking arrests have absolutely exploded. And from what I saw, excuse me, they exploded. Almost all juvenile crimes have absolutely blown up, right? So this is assaults. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. This is what this Jeffalytics has been mentioning multiple times now. As you can see, it's not unusual for MPDC's publicly available data to suggest a larger drop in violent crime than is reported to the FBI, probably due to the former measuring incidents versus the latter measuring victims. Different methods of measurement. But the percentage changes are usually reasonably close. For 2024, however, the FBI's data shows a 9% drop, while MPDC's public data shows a 35% drop. That is absolutely not close. Okay, so that is interesting to note. For 2024, they claimed a 35% drop in violent crime. FBI says no, it's closer to only a 9% drop in violent crime. And this is MDPC data we're looking at right here, yes? We're looking up violent crime. No, this is FBI. This is FBI data right here. Okay, so even the FBI's data still looks really, really good. But yeah, so that would be the data we had previously seen in the last section, right? Here we go. So here's the difference between the change in MPDC and change in CDE, which is that, I believe that's the FBI's data collection. Crime Data Explorer. Yep, that's what the FBI uses. Okay, so here's the difference. Pretty wide. 2017 was the widest. Excuse me. No, 2024 was super wide. That's a very wide one. 35 and 9. So that's the widest that has been so far. Okay, interesting. So that's just good to know. That's some good information for you, right? Fred James, what's going on? Well, appreciate the message, man. Here, I'll hit you up in the chat on, where are you on Kick? I got like 4 different channels that I work on. And you on Discord? Yeah, Discord, sweet. Hit you up after the stream. But thanks for the message, man. Appreciate it. And okay, let's bounce back over Meow. And I gotta. Okay, so yeah, that's important to know. We don't have 2025 data from the FBI to know for sure. That the department's 26% decline from 2024 is an overstatement, but I'd be very surprised if it was accurate. Yeah, so normally the numbers are pretty close, but for 2023 to 2024, big discrepancy. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. So it might not be dropping as much as some data, MPDC's public data says. Okay, I'm not sure why the discrepancy between MPDC's data and what's being reported to the FBI has grown, but the enormous quantity and quality of open data provided by MDC points strongly towards a data reporting issue rather than an intentional misrepresentation. Although if you want to take the preceding paragraphs in bad faith and immediately jump to that conclusion, I guess it's your prerogative. That's funny. So while we don't really confidently know exactly how much violent crime is falling in DC in 2025 from the public data, the drops in murder and robbery this year, which conform much closer, I had it right the first time, to what has been reported to the FBI, suggest violent crime is indeed dropping. So violent crime is still dropping. There's a possibility that it's not dropping as much as MPDC data says, but it is still dropping. Jeffalytics, everybody, I will link this, their Substack, in the description to the YouTube video, so you can go check it out. Really awesome shit. And then I just wanted to take a look at this. So we have, it's when you're looking at crime data and how violent, you're trying to figure out how violent a place is. It is good to know. Everything is relative. Okay. It's all relative. Okay. If you just grew up in fucking Afghanistan in the middle of a fucking war zone, right? And then you move out to Memphis that has an incredibly high crime rate. You would live in Memphis and you would think, oh, wow, this is nice. This is low crime. Because you just got out of a fucking war zone. You're used to people being blown up in the fucking street and shit, right? So going to Memphis and occasionally there's a carjacking, it's like, wow, this is awesome. Fucking hey, I love this place. This is like chill, It's all relative. So you have to compare data to other data points. One data point on a map doesn't really mean anything. You need to compare it. And one way to compare crime data is on a time scale. Compare it to previous years, which we did that, and compare to previous years, regardless of the discrepancy that may exist between FBI data and MPDC data, there is, in fact, a decrease in crime. Okay, it may not be huge, but there is a decrease in crime year after year for at least the last 2 years. Okay, and that's important to note. And when we compare the homicide rate to other years, previous years, for the last, since the 1960s, we're not half bad in DC, okay? It's not amazing, but it's certainly not as bad as it has been. It's closer to being amazing than it is to being really fucking bad, right? So that's important to note too. Another comparison is to compare it to other cities, okay? What is DC's violent crime rate and homicide rate compared to other cities? That'll give us a good representation of how violent it actually is, okay? So that's what we have here. This on the right here, this is the percentage change. This is a percentage change. The annual rate of homicide offenses in 2024. Okay. This is per 100,000 people right here. Rate per 100,000. What did you listen? Fuckface? Do your job. So, and we already saw this rate for DC. It was 27.5. In 2024, the homicide rate per 100,000 people was 27.5. So let's look at where that falls. Compared to Albuquerque, it's worse than Albuquerque, worse than Atlanta, not worse than Baltimore, not worse than Detroit, not worse than Memphis, and not worse than St. Louis. Not worse than St. Louis. It is worse than Washington State in general. Nope, that's it. Okay, so there's 4 main cities right there that beat it. Okay, so it's again, it's not particularly good. I mean, if you look at Arlington, Cary, I don't know where, Boston, I guess it does mention that the ones that they're missing data for those. So don't look at that. Lincoln, Nebraska, well, of course that's going to be pretty low, but New York City, 3.8. That's pretty good. Philadelphia, Phoenix is 7.6. That's pretty good. Colorado Springs is 8. Charlotte is 10.5. Austin is 5.6. It's really, really good, right? And that is, compared to like St. Louis here is the biggest at 48.6 homicides per 100,000 residents. That's the taker, and that's 20 homicides more per 100,000 people than Washington, D.C. There's 4 cities there on this list that beat Washington, D.C. in terms of they were worse for homicide rates, okay? So it's in the top. Washington, D.C. is in the top as far as violent cities go, okay? And we just look over here. This is another map. I do have something to say about this particular map, though. Trends in violent crime and accountability, 50 state violent crime data. So the 2023 crime rate, again, this is 2023 when the crime rates were really high. I couldn't find the same map for 2024, which is a bummer because I really like this map up here. But you can see DC is well and above and beyond the worst. The darker it is, the worse. Now, it's important to note when looking at this particular map, this is the District of Columbia compared to entire states. This is the entire state of Illinois, not just Chicago. Okay. This is the entire state of like Missouri, not Illinois or not St. Louis, right, which was high. The entire state of Tennessee, whereas Tennessee, not just Memphis, the city. You know, DC, Washington, DC is not as big as any of these states. Okay, so it's a little skewed. Okay, DC has a much more condensed crime rate. It's a much smaller area that's being monitored than the states here, right? So that changes the way you want to look at this graph. You see what I'm saying? Although, you know, if you think about it, that should, I mean, because it's a smaller area and it's a smaller amount of people. You know, I guess, I don't know, how would that change that? That you would expect, well, no, because you have, you know, rural areas that are averaging Chicago and St. Louis out, right? St. Louis's murder rate is very high, but you have a whole lot of rural areas that are decreasing that rate, I suppose, right? Or no, well, it doesn't work that way because it's not an average, isn't it? No, it's just how many deaths per 100,000 people. Violent incidents reported, 28,000 in 2023. Violent incidents reported, 7,000 in 2023. Okay, so it's still much less than the state of Missouri, right? State of Illinois. So you are getting much higher numbers in all these states. But anyways, yeah, violent crime is bad in DC. We are aware of that, though. In 2023, they had a spike. We saw that. And then, you know, here's the solve rate. The solve rate is pretty, not too good. This, again, is 2023. So that just gives you another visual representation. Again, I really wish we would have saw that for 2024, because we know in 2023, that was when this particular state was at its worst. So violent incidents, and, you know, like, look at this. This is an interesting chart. Overall rates, violent incidents per 100,000 people, 1,100 in the District of Columbia. And 1,100 in the District of Columbia compared to entire states. The District of Columbia is a much smaller area compared to these entire states. 191 in Wyoming, of course. That's pretty incredible, yeah? Violent incidents. Okay, so that was violent incidents per 100,000 people. Violent incidents reported. Okay, so that's why 100,000 per 100,000 people. There's much more people, so it's going to make the numbers much smaller for the states. Okay, violent incidences reported in 2023. Let's see where we're at. Woo! California, 198,000. Again, much more people. 7,000. Okay. Percentage change in violent crime. This is, again, 2023, 10% increase. California was a 15. Colorado was a 23% increase. Okay, interesting. Percentage point change in solve rate, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so long story short, that's just another way to kind of look at the data. What I wanted to show you here was what is the actual crime in DC, because we'll just go over here so you can see it. When I went to go look this story up and give you information on it, almost everything, you can look right here. The fact check, that's actually the White House right there. DC violent crime has grown more deadly despite Dems claiming 30-year low. That's Fox News. CNN fact-checked violent crime in DC has fallen in 2024. Fact-checking Donald Trump's claims about homicide in DC. Here's some more. What is a crime rate in Washington, D.C.? That was Fox News. We already went over that one. Trump misstates Washington's crime data to justify takeover. Is crime in Washington, D.C. out of control, as Trump claims? Factcheck.org. Trump distorts violent crime statistics. Security.org. Which U.S. cities are the most dangerous? Map shows how D.C. violent crimes compare to other U.S. states. And let's see, that was from the White House. Yes, D.C. crime is out of control. Long story short, Trump says D.C. is bedlam and squalor. Here are the facts. As you can see, what I wanted to point out was almost every article that I tried to look, that I wanted to find to look up this situation, it's all just fact-checking Donald Trump. You just type in crime levels in Washington, D.C. This was just me looking for statistics on it. Okay, just looking for statistics in crime. Every single article was fact-checking Donald Trump. Because, like I said, we're talking about a political issue here. And people on different sides of the political spectrum have different opinions about this issue. And if you're on the left, obviously you don't like Donald Trump. So a lot of people on the left are going to be of the opinion they're not going to want Trump to be right. That's just what it is. And that's not to say every person on the left is dishonest. Because as we said, they're not. They are correct in the sense that DC is decreasing in crime year after year. They are correct in that, you know. Even if you make up for the discrepancy between the FBI data and the MPDC data, that's still very true. Okay, but, you know, let's cut the bullshit. Let's not be stupid here and play silly little fucking games. We all know how this works. When it's a Democrat president, Republicans, particularly Republican media and pundits, look for everything they can to make that Democratic president look like a liar and an asshole. And when it's a Republican president, the media, particularly the liberal media and liberal pundits, do everything they can to make that Republican president look like a liar and an asshole. This is politics in America, ladies and gentlemen. We're all aware of this. We know this, okay? So this isn't a shocker to anybody that your liberal mainstream media is going to spend time making Trump look like he's wrong on this. And I just gave you the data. Okay. We read what the White House had to say about, you know, what Trump had to say, what the White House formal, whatever, announcement on the topic had to say. We know what kicked off this whole thing was Big Balls getting his butt kicked. And we've looked at the data ourselves. Okay. And you'll have the links to all the data in the description, including that Jeff Analytics. So I give you all that so you can go ahead and be the judge. Do you think on your own? Okay, clearly the liberal media does not want you to believe that Trump is in the right doing what he's doing. Of course they don't. They don't want him to be right, okay? And if this was a Democrat president doing this, rest assured, Republicans would not want him to look right. So they would be doing the same thing. We all know that's how this works, right? But you go ahead and decide for yourself. Do you think Donald Trump is correct in doing what he's doing or not based off of the crime data that you have seen? Okay, I'll let you decide that for yourself. Here is just a couple people on X that had something to say. Phil Labonte from All That Remains. I do love All That Remains. All That Remains is a good fucking metal band. If you don't know who they are, you should check them out. Really entertaining. I think they just released a new album. I believe it's called Anti-Fragile. That was really good. So check it out. Let's see. Shot Chaser. Okay, David M. McIntosh says, famously unsafe Georgetown. FBI and DIA patrolling Georgetown and Washington, D.C. And News from the Concrete says, delayed report. Citizen robbed in Georgetown, Wisconsin, yada yada. D.C. police responded early this morning for a robbery with a citizen having their possessions taken by unknown individuals. No weapon was produced. Incidents took place between 7 and 8 a.m. Okay, so this is just a police report. And Phil Labonte reposts this. Again, David says, shot chaser. I'm not entirely sure what he meant by that. And Phil says, of course, I will say again, federalizing the police in D.C. is an objective good for the people of D.C. It would likely be an objective good for many other cities as well. So that's Phil Labonte. That's how you say his name, right? Phil Labonte. His take on it. Slick Will in the layabouts says, nah, this is a shit take. Give the government an inch and it'll take a mile. Well, I mean, he's not wrong on that neither, though. Like, the government will always take a mile. That's what the government does. That's their job, is to take more than you give them. So the government always wants more power. That's what they're there for, yeah. This person, Brian Ex Machina, says, until the people who don't like you are in power, and then it will not be an objective good. I am not in favor of any precedent set that can be used against me. And I'm tired. It says, notice how he left the timestamp off his chaser, immediately sus. Oh, I didn't pick that up. He's talking about the original tweet. I know my brother goes into DC for work sometimes. I would love for him to be safer. We need less federal government, not more. It's easy to imagine when your guy is in power, but what happens when this is in place and the bad guys get back in? The slippery slope slides fast, and we need to be careful what we wish for. It's objectively bad for our system of government and separation of powers. That's 8-foot rollers. Tism Supreme, we're about to see an experiment similar to NYC with stop and frisk. The results will be overall good for the people there, but it's going to be like Hunger Games. The debauchery of the previous admin has already infected the halls and chambers. This is the beginning of something. Okay, I think he's being a little too serious there. Tom Elliott. So Peter Baker said, citing a non-existent crime crisis, Trump claims to take over the Washington, D.C. police and put troops in the streets of the nation's capital. Contrary to his claim, violent crime in D.C. is at a 30-year low. A 30-year low. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. 30-year low is 100% not true. We just looked at the data. We can say no. That violent crime is not at a 30-year low. It hasn't been. I mean, the last time it was this low was, I guess, 2008. Okay? So you can say maybe close to a 20-year low, you know, but it's still, no, we're not there yet. That's 100% absolutely false. Whoever Peter Baker is, you're a fucking liar. We literally just looked at the stats, so we all know. Call Peter Baker, tell him he's a dipshit. You're fucking lying. Tom Elliott, I don't know who he is, but he says, I'll personally pledge $300 for Peter to live stream himself walking the following route, unarmed after 9 p.m. on any weekend night. So I'm assuming that this is through, the bad parts of town of District Columbia. Well, look, just because the town has bad parts of it doesn't mean that the entire thing is fucked. But, you know, that is what it is. Peter is full of shit right there. And this was common sense. I don't know who he is neither. Don't believe the fake news hype. The normal people of DC love the safety in the new Trump administration. Okay, let's see here. Bump Easy. This is a video from Bump Easy. What does Bump Easy have to say?
Man, down the city is quiet as a church mouse, young. I came all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning. So peaceful, young. I don't smell no weed, young. I don't see no homeless people. I mean, I came all the way through the southeast side, all the way down here. You see now I'm at the White House, jump, man. It's quiet, yeah. It's a shame that it takes somebody to have to sit in your classroom in order for you to be in order, yeah. Because that's what it feels like, yeah. You gotta be babysitter to do your job, yeah. Stuff been out of control for years. You gotta do better, yeah. You gotta do better, yeah. And mainly, young, you got the problems. It's us, man. It's always us giving everybody a bad name, yeah. We'll see how long this lasts, yeah. How many murders was it last night? How many carjackings was it last night? Talk to me. And y'all keep on posting all these data numbers and things of that nature that y'all see everybody else reposting. The stuff that came from the Metropolitan Police Department and the mayor, yeah. Let me tell you something, yeah. Let me tell you something. You can't be that stupid. You can't be, man. Who enters that information to get that data analysis, young? People do. You can enter whatever numbers you want to make whatever report show what, but you can't hide the crime, young. You can't do it.
I don't know what he said there.
Let me give you something to break it down to you for those that don't understand. I retired from UPS, right? So what they used to do to play with the numbers or whatever, we have mission packages.
I used to work for UPS.
You have drivers over the hours. They go in and enter the information, and the report would show whatever they needed to show to keep their bonus that week for their bosses not to fire their ass. So stop believing that stuff.
Never been a driver, so I don't know that.
DC government, young, but they suck, young. They have got a lot more better now that the officers have did what they had to do and got all of these people out of the government and got rid of the riffraff and things of that nature, people actually do work now.
Riffraff.
Let me give you this for example, right? You got carry and conceals or whatever that were being issued by the DC separate department that was handling the gun licensing and things of that nature. They went from turnaround time for like 4 months, 5 months for you to have to damn get a gun registered in DC.
Holy shit.
And get a carry and conceal to 2.
That is fucking stupid. I'm going to say that right now. Fuck that.
2 weeks.
That's dope.
It used to take you 3 months just to get an appointment to talk to somebody.
That's
take
crazy.
Your information and your gun down there.
Fuck
now,
that shit. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I understand if they're busy or whatever, what can you do? That doesn't necessarily mean some sort of impropriety is happening here. Nothing nefarious. It could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. But that is crazy. Fuck that shit.
You go
if it's
online
true
right now and they got appointments available tomorrow.
Nice.
How does that happen? What changed? You put some fire under their asses and now they want to do some
You need to
work.
watch the road, though. I do think don't do TikTok videos when driving, folks. Okay, yeah. So there's that. Take it for what it is. The person who lives there feels like it's much safer. Okay, fair enough. And this was just a bunch of stuff. This is the Black Tucker Carlson Jr. DC police are this close from starting a revolution. Okay, what does that mean? Let's check it out then.
I wasn't even smoking though, bro. I've been sat right here, bro. Don't do me like that, bro. Hey, you a brother, bro. Come on, bro. Don't do me like that. You get some weed up off the ground, bro. Everybody saying that, bro. Don't do me like that, bro. And they put up. Out of everybody out here, you got mad. I just saw him smoking. Bro, you gonna do me like that, bro? My car's on, though. Hold on, bro. We're gonna secure your vehicle. Man, listen, no, ain't none of that. My car's on. I was about to leave. He said I could leave. Fuck all that. Man, listen, all that secure vehicle shit, bro. Go ahead, bro. Y'all down like dick in, bro. Listen, bro, that's my car, bro. What the fuck? Man, listen, the key's on me and I'm not giving it to y'all, bro. Don't text me, bro. Listen, my ID is on me. That's all he asked. Why am I arrested? Listen, why am I arrested? I don't listen. Why? Y'all niggas think y'all can do whatever y'all want. I don't give a fuck about that badge. I'm a personal trainer, nigga. And I was a fire department, nigga.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I do have to say this, right? I used to work in a detention center for like 3 years. This brings back memories. This really does. Man, fuck out my face. I'll beat your ass. Gosh, jeez. You know, you just gotta smile.
Listen,
It's funny.
I'm not arrested, though. I'm not going nowhere. Listen, I'm not going nowhere. Call your chief. I'm not going nowhere. It's my birthday and all that. Call your chief. Fuck all that. Take your badge off. I bet I do something to your ass. Take your badge off. Fuck, you gonna let them niggas do me like that, bro? You a brother, bro.
Oh, God.
I don't want you touching me.
That never gets old, though. That is really funny. It's. I guess it's always funny when it comes from a smaller statured person. Hey, I'm not, Mr. fucking 6'5" fucking Brock Lesnar over here, or no shit. All right, so I'm not Mr. Big Boy, but when it comes from the guy that looks like a chihuahua, like, you just gotta giggle.
He already got me. Fuck on. Yeah, how about that? Freedom of speech. Fuck on. Freedom of speech. How about that? Now y'all come on, arrested. Fuck on. Come on, man. Y'all hating like shit on me, man. I ain't from. Man,
Okay, wait. So what did that video show? I mean, that was just a dude getting pissed because he's getting arrested. That happens 5 times a day. Starting a revolution. I don't know what he means by that. Okay, I got a burp. So I'm assuming... Ooh. These burps. Well, I'm drinking soda, so of course I'm going to start burping now. I should have thought of that before I did that on stream, but it's too delicious not to. Okay, give me one more burp. That was a big one. That was a big one. Okay, we got that out. Nope, not quite. Okay, phew, we're done. I swear to God. So it seems like the Black Tucker Carlson Jr. I was very confused by that name because I'm like, well, that sounds like a Republican possibly. But then when they say he's starting a revolution, I was like, I don't know. And then reading through here, he certainly doesn't sound like a Republican. His omniscient, God, these burps, man, I'm telling you. The Mayos. Who do you think he means when he says the Mayos? I have an idea, right? Geesh. Will laugh and applaud an innocent black man's rights being trampled on, but they don't realize that when our rights are ignored, they will soon get the same treatment. They still haven't learned how this works. Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know if this dude's rights are getting trampled on, bro. Like, this guy's just getting pissed. Again, yeah, if this is the revolution, come on. Anybody who's worked in any amount of law enforcement for even a minor time runs into this like twice a week, dude. Some little pipsqueak ass chihuahua looking ass motherfucker just throwing it out there, man, just getting all 7 shades of pissed because you caught his ass red-handed doing something. All right, like, this is a normal occurrence. This isn't a revolution of any kind, but that was an interesting point to make. It looks like that's the point he's trying to make, though. And fine, well, he's not wrong on that, though. They should focus on murderers, robbers, pedos, and finally release the Epstein files. You got to give that a like. You have to give that a heart. Come on now. Come on now. Don't be silly. Yeah. Ooh, that is a good quote. I do like that quote. Based. I don't know if this guy's Republican or not. It doesn't really matter because I follow Republicans, liberals, the whole 9 yards. But that's a pretty base quote, right? Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Got to give that a heart. Got to give that a heart, bro. And I gotta. Okay. So the murder rate is as high in DC as it is in Johannesburg, South Africa. It shouldn't be. I don't know if that's true. We didn't look up. We could probably just do that right now. Yeah. Look up the murder rate and murder rate per 1,000 people. 2024. Johannesburg. Is it Johannesburg or Johannesburg? I've heard it both times. South Africa. I don't really know. So murder rate per 100. Yeah, this is being sucks. Just give me my chat GPT. What? Listen, son. Oh, you son of a bitch. Let's go back. If I can copy that. I'm still getting used to. There we go. That's a copy. 37.9 people per 100,000. So no. As of 2024, Mr. What is your name? Golf Guy 21, you are incorrect. No hearts for you. It is not as high as Johannesburg, South Africa. It is about 10 people less. Liar caught lying. Yeah, he is lying there. 27.3. 29.9 in 2026. Okay, come on. Come on. You're comparing 2024 to 2026. We just looked it up. Here's Johannesburg 2024, 37.9. So it's 10 times more than the 27.5 that is Washington, D.C. that we saw for 2024. So you are lying. Again, good sir, continuously lying. Got called out in your lie and continued to lie. That was murder rate, yeah. So, oh. Son of a bitch, yeah. Give this guy a heart. Thanks for lying. Yep. 37.9. Yep. And does this guy ever respond? Damn you. I can never... Can't see. Okay, well, fuck it. I don't care that much. But yeah, so that's incorrect. So yeah, there's a couple, and I think that's what this is. I just typed in DC. Oh. That's good old Robbie at the Hill. I just typed in DC to see what other people were posting here. That's where I got that guy. Big Balls fought off a group of carjackers attacking him and his girlfriend in DC over the weekend. Redditors are now convinced this was a false flag. So this is the incident that started it all off. Big Balls here could get prestigious presidential medal after DC assault. Oh, wow. Okay, well, I mean, fucking A, I suppose. But that's, we got to be honest. How many guys fight people off to defend their wives and don't get a fucking medal? I don't know if he deserves a medal. Like, he definitely deserves to be recognized as a bad motherfucker for fighting for his girlfriend. That's without a shadow of a doubt. Dope ass motherfucker. Defending the people you care about. 100%. But I don't know about a medal, Anyways, DC's illegal alien sanctuary status has been revoked under the federalization. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's not happening. All right. Year-to-date carjacking offense heat map. We did see that carjackings, particularly teenage carjackings, blew up in 2024. Okay. Here's the mayor of DC 2 years ago asking Congress to activate the National Guard to deal with crime. Why is it okay for her to say, but not Trump? Interesting. I mean, again, we do know that it's down from 2 years ago, but that is an interesting point, though. If everybody's pissed off at Trump and not her, and the difference between now and 2 years ago, remember, was only that 10 points. Correct? Wasn't it only the let's go 2023... Washington, D.C. Uh, 40.4. So it was just over a 10-person decrease. We're at 27.5 in 2025, right? So 40.4 minus 27.5. So that's just a 12-point difference. Yeah, that 12-point difference. People were okay with her doing it. Again, though, this is politics, and it isn't just Democrats that play politics. It's Republicans, too. Democrats were okay with her wanting National Guard. Maybe. We don't know that. This person's just saying that Democrats were okay with it. That doesn't mean that they actually were. Democrats, I'm looking through the comments to see if Democrats came out and said, yeah, we were never okay with that, Okay. She asked for control of the DC National Guard, not to activate it. Okay. That could be possible, yeah. Yeah, this is just a bunch of people shitting on Democrats, and I don't really give a fuck. So this is some... Oh, look at that. People getting tossed around. They're not fucking around out there. This is the DC police arresting people. Okay. Crime is down in DC, shouts journalist currently being pummeled by group of thugs. Oh, Babylon Bee. Yeah, of course. And then another guy, CJ Pearson, saying he feels safe down there now. Okay. U.S. Attorney for DC, Janine Prio, says that the man caught on camera throwing a Subway sandwich at a federal officer on Sunday night has been charged with a felony. Oh, wow. Oh, look at him. He got chased down, bro. That was not worth throwing that sandwich. That was probably a perfectly fine sandwich, too. What the fuck you do that for? That's craziness. Puzzled DC police chief asked reporters, what is this black and white car that goes wee woo, wee woo? Okay, that's some other stuff. DC Schumer claims that he feels perfectly safe when he walks around DC. Okay, fair enough. And okay, so well, there you have it. I had some other.
This is Democracy Watch, Mark. We have
some
breaking
Brian
news
Taylor Cohen.
Trump is taking over
some
Washington.
Asmongold, of course, good old Asmongold, and then some Hill to give us some insights on the situation in DC, see what all their opinions on the matter were. But I don't think anybody's watching the stream anymore. It's 10 o'clock where I'm at, and I got to go get some food, some foodsy woozies, fill my belly welly, and yeah, so I'm bored. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of that, and I'm going to end the stream. And so you guys can decide for yourself what you think about the National Guard in DC, Trump's asking Congress to continue it past the 30 days that he is allotted, and whether or not it was necessary based off the crime statistics that we saw. I'll go ahead and let you decide for yourself how you feel about that. All right. And in the meantime, thank you to everybody that watched the stream. Razor, I think you popped out a while ago, so he's not here anymore. But still, as always, broski, if you see this, thank you for tuning into the stream. Always appreciate being able to talk to you, even if it's just for a few minutes. Always fun to sit and chat with you, man. So to anybody else who popped in on the stream and gave it a little looky-loo, I appreciate the, what's the word? The support. I appreciate you checking the stream out. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, please. Anybody who watches this on YouTube, please do the same. Give it a like and subscribe. Helps the channel. If you appreciated the content, obviously. If not, then leave a comment telling me I suck or something like that. So, but anyways, I'm going to head out. I will be back Monday with another Film Buff Friday. And this Friday, we're going to be covering deep dive into sound for film theory. So that'll be 7 p.m. hopefully this Monday. All right. And in the meantime, everybody have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you then. Peace.